call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you do the roll call, please.
Sure. McEvers.
Here.
Gookin.
Yep.
Miller.
Here.
English.
Here.
Evans. Ettinger.
Here.
We will rise for the invocation. Pastor Kevin Schultz with Divine Church is with us tonight. Welcome, Pastor Schultz.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for allowing me to lead you in prayer tonight. Lord God, be with these men and women this evening as they serve our city with their time and talents. Give them an awareness that they are God's servants, whom He has given to us and to our city for our earthly well-being and government. Bless them with the wisdom and courage to do what is right and just and fair, along with a spirit of cooperation and humility to work together for the common good. I ask you to graciously protect them and their families, keeping them healthy and safe. According to your wisdom and love, prosper our communities, prosper our homes, and prosper our hearts in ways that only you can do. I ask these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Woody, lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We do have an amendment to the agenda tonight. And Kiki, you have a motion
Mayor,
for us?
I do. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add as an action item, Republic Parking's contest of a selection of diamond parking for parking management services. The amendment is a necessity by an emergency involving the likelihood of immediate financial loss due to the imminent expiration of the existing contracts for parking management services. This matter should be added as item number 4 under other business.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Ettinger.
Yep.
Evans. Miller.
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yeah.
English.
Yes. Motion carried, and that item will be added to item number 4 under other business. Now it's time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council on city business shall have 3 minutes to do so. We have a good crowd tonight, so hopefully we have some people that have a message to give. So anyone out there would like to give public comment? Whoever, come on up. First come, first serve.
Hello, my name is Robert White, and I live at P.O. Box 1053, Athol, Idaho, a little box, you know. And one of the things I want to bring up that I'm very concerned about is Council Bill number 19-1018, this urban renewal thing for the hospital. Our taxes have already gone up 3% from the commissioners of this county. Now we have estimates of this going up another 7% for the residents. The residents of this county cannot afford this anymore. There's people that I happen to know that are leaving the county because they can't afford the taxes anymore. And this is really going to be a hard burden for a lot of the people in this county. And for a corporation, Kootenai Corporation, I don't think it's the responsibility of the citizens to pay for their corporation and their venture over there. And I'm asking you, please vote no on this. This is a burden that citizens cannot bear anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. As we go through tonight, let's follow meeting decorum, and I know that some of you may support what some people have to say, but let's not have applause after someone's comments, please. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come on?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Christie Wood, 4025 West Fairway Drive, Coeur d'Alene. I wish to speak on the agenda item for the health corridor. Many of you know me as a trustee at North Idaho College. I'm in my 15th year there. Approximately 12 years ago, the trustees were very focused on a strategic plan that enabled our students in the 5 northern counties that we serve to obtain a seamless education right here on the Coeur d'Alene campus. We envisioned a higher education corridor that provided associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees to our students that did not require them to move from the area to obtain their advanced degrees. the shuttered mill site property adjacent to the college came up for sale. We had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fill that strategic plan. Unfortunately, it did become very controversial and a political issue. This was a decision that involved public funds. We were actually sued over our decision to purchase the property, but I am happy to say we prevailed in the lawsuit. We made a request to the Urban Renewal Agency to assist us with funds to pay for the installation of roadways, curbing, sidewalks, and parking lots on the mill site. They agreed to do so, and the corridor was born. This too was controversial because urban renewal at the time and in other cities was operating with less oversight than they are today. As a result of the decision of the elected officials and our partnership with Ignite, City of Coeur d'Alene, University of Idaho, and Lewis Clark State College, 12 years later, last fall, we opened the Bob and Leona DeArmond Center for Higher Education on the Education Corridor property. Our strategic plan of providing advanced degrees to our students is a reality. Our health programs are second to none. We have a waiting list for our programs in the health division. We're in a major process of a major expansion of the Meyer Health Science Building due to the ongoing demand for advanced health science degrees. I tell you this because you need look no further than the education corridor to see this kind of strategic planning by elected officials is essential in serving our citizens. But I also want you to deeply understand that the college cannot do this alone. We can provide the degrees, but it's incumbent upon city leaders and county leaders in our region to also be strategic in their planning and their economic development that brings in higher paying jobs into the health sector. These jobs will enable our students and our citizens to live, work, and play in the city they were born in. I'm asking you to make the long-term decision for generations to come, because our job as leaders is not just to focus on the here and now, but to plan for the future. Please vote yes to the health corridor, ensure high-paying jobs for this area and economic prosperity for our citizens. Also ensure that if we're sick, we don't have to leave the area, because we're going to get top-quality health care if you focus on your strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to come up, come on up.
Council members and Mayor, thank you for allowing me to come and speak for a few minutes. My name is Brian Jorgensen. You all received letters from me this last week, other than possibly Mayor Widmeyer. It wasn't my desire to be in the Coeur d'Alene press, but I was in the press also. I've been a business owner in the healthcare corridor for 43 years. The healthcare corridor, especially on the west end, has been developed by a small handful of people that did it wrong the first time. If it had been done right the first time, we wouldn't have to go back and get taxpayers' money to do it right the second time. We talk about gridlock, ingress, egress. We talk about traffic flow. Ironwood will never be proper with traffic flow until US 95 and Northwest Boulevard are addressed properly and taken care of to where people can get there and can get out of there. It won't be done with new stoplights every half mile. It won't be done anywhere. The infrastructure of those two roads are way more important than changing roads in Ironwood Drive. I have to look at my notes here because I'm not very good at this. Last month's council meeting, I went over the notes over and over and over again. Quotes, that is not known at this time. We have no real concept of what it will potentially cost the taxpayers long range at this time. The only thing that is known for sure is that there are a lot of unknowns. With unknowns, answers, unknowns, unknowns, yes, knowns, unknowns. You guys probably remember that quote from last month, I'm sure. What's it tell you? Nobody knows anything about long range and what the impact's going to be to this city and to the taxpayers of this area. An element of concept of eminent domain has been brought up. The United States Constitution, written by the forefathers of this country, because they did not trust the government The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution is where eminent domain is talked about. Potentially, you can get yourself in a situation where the American Civil Liberties Union would represent individuals against the city if you're laying out a plan that's going to say 10 years from now we're going to do something. That's like saying 10 years from now I'm going to go rob a bank. Saying I'm going to go rob a bank doesn't get me in trouble. But with the knowledge of the consequences that come with it, maybe a whole different concept. It's something the city needs to think about that, because this could tie up this whole thing for years and years and years. That has to do with the Constitution of the United States. This has nothing to do with anything here. The Kootenai County Task Force has worked diligently to educate the people of this community. They've addressed the Aryan nations. They've addressed discrimination, racism, sexuality. They also address bullying. The definition of bullying: one who seeks to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable or weaker. You have to think about who you're dealing with and where you guys want to aim this community, because if this goes through as perceived, I would ask that the City Council name the new Greenbelt Bullying Park. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you folks very much.
Thank you. Others wishing to come up?
Hello, council members and Mayor Whitmire, excuse me. My name is Christopher Drake. I am also a president of a business over on Ironwood, and I also would like to address the council bill for the health corridor. I wrote a letter to you. It was late. It was today. I don't know if you received it or not, but I'm torn, and I'm going to tell you why I'm torn. I see the benefits of the health corridor. I see what you're trying to do. I see what Ignite CDA can do for the businesses. I can see how it would actually ignite and help to bring things in. It looks beautiful. It looks like it's going to make something really nice. The bad side and the negatives, in my opinion, far outweigh the positives. Currently, the way that the bill is written, we as business owners are currently being undermined by gentrification through removal rather than incorporation. We have dreams and visions. The business that we have has been there for 47 years. And I have been involved and myself being part of this for a good 15 years. And being part of this, we have dreams and visions for our own land, for doing things that we would like to do. And the way that the bill is currently written, the way that the proposal is currently written, it looks to take away the rights of the landowners rather than actually giving them an opportunity to be part of the creative process. I have dreams and visions to create a community center on that piece of land, to create things that would actually benefit the entire community. But that's not going to be possible if I'm going to be removed one way or the other. I understand that eminent domain has never been used or in the past, but we can't speak to the future. I assume all of you guys are saying, oh, we don't have any desire to bring eminent domain into this. But if this bill's approved, who's to say that your future followers won't? It's very possible that somebody with this plan in place could say, well, it's in place, we're going to take this and we're going to move it forward with different morals and ideals than maybe even you have. I would like you guys to consider the way that it's currently written and understand that it isn't to the benefit of the people and the businesses that are currently here. I am for the development of Coeur d'Alene. I love Coeur d'Alene. I think it's the best place on earth. And I've traveled a lot. But I will say this, as it's currently written, please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Others, come on up. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Mary Souza. I live at 4153 West Fairway Drive in Coeur d'Alene, and I am here as a citizen of Coeur d'Alene, but also as the state senator representing the district of Coeur d'Alene. I served on the interim committee few years ago, the interim committee that reviewed the urban renewal laws in Idaho. And I want you to understand clearly that there was a big shift at that point in time with House Bill 606 in 2016. Prior to that, the urban renewal agencies had been perceived and declared an independent agency. But the House Bill 606 changed the role of the City Council and the mayor, so that the mayor, with the advice and consent of the City Council, appoints or removes members of this Urban Renewal Board. It is critical that you understand that the buck stops with you, not with the Urban Renewal Board, because you are the oversight. And we wanted that. The legislature deliberately changed the language so that you would have the oversight power. You may, if you want, if you vote, you can appoint or remove members of the Urban Renewal Board. You can become the Urban Renewal Board yourselves for up to a year. And or you can vote to have the members of the Urban Renewal Board stand for public election. I'm just reminding you and letting the public know that these are all options in the law. Because when I went to the Urban Renewal site today, out of some phone calls of concern from constituents, I was concerned. I couldn't find a copy of the plan. I found the feasibility study and I looked it over. It looks enormous, it looks very invasive, but I heard from some people that there's language in the plan to the effect that the board would have the right to go into buildings and inspect the buildings within the district and declare that they are underperforming. That's language I have never been aware of associated with urban renewal decisions. Nor have I been aware of the language of obsolete buildings. There's no definition in the statute for obsolete or underperforming. So who is going to make those determinations? You're talking about an overlay urban renewal district over existing properties that have been in place and businesses that have been in operation for decades, if not more. I would caution you to be very careful in the way you deal with this. I don't believe the public has had a chance to look at the plan. It's not on the website. I couldn't access it at all. And so my request to you tonight is not to take a final vote on this plan, to hold it, put the plan out to the public, give the public more time to look it over, and please be careful and cautious in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing for public comment tonight?
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Dr. Norman Leffler. I've lived in Coeur d'Alene for 21 years. I'm a retired MD urologist, and this is my first time I've attended one of these meetings. I recently was markedly disturbed, along with a number of other people, let me say one thing right off. I don't know a lot about the medical corridor thing. I've read just recently in the thing, but it sounds like the public is being railroaded. So I want to say that quickly. But what I am here about is the commissioners of the Arts Council for having put up a quote work of art that was junk for 3 years in Riverstone, and with the symbol of communism, and it was a political thing against the mining of coal. I attended their meeting. I think these people, all those responsible for that, should be handing in their resignations or be withdrawn by you all because, number one, they're incompetent in terms of their knowledge of art and the way they function from what I saw. And as an example, at that meeting, they bought a work of art for $7,000, which wasn't much of a work, and I found out from Mr. Tyson here that I don't know a lot about business, even though I was a physician, but they never got an appraisal on this work. They're willing to spend $7,000 there. I know what they're spending is something like $30,000 a year or so, and they're paying $1,000 to the artist to put up this junk that they had for 3 years. I passed it this year. I went to Riverstone to some of the concerts. I thought it was just it was no work of art. I thought it was just a billboard type thing. And I never really saw this symbol of communism, which I think was facing on the lake. But the point is, if that's an example of what they consider art and what they just bought, which was it's blue, and they're going to put it, they haven't decided where they're going to put it, but maybe near the river because it's blue. This is what I was told at this meeting. These people need to be withdrawn. That money that they're spending, it isn't a lot, $30,000, could be used for the history museum that we have that's just being used. We have the Bird Aviation Museum, which just came in from Sagal and badly needs money. We have a Coeur d'Alene Symphony with a new conductor that could use the money. That money could be better spent putting up works of art, which are mainly sculpture, and they're limited as to this. I didn't know. I live in the Landings. That's Atlas and Prairie, and we have a park there that's been there 15 years, and you know how many works of art it's gotten? Zilch. And the reason is, according to the law, under this former urban renewal thing, it's only allowed to go where there's urban renewal. So what I'm saying is these people are, if they're educated in art, I'd like to know what they've done. I'd like to, as an example, to find out and have the general public know what art they've bought in the last, say, 3 to 5 years, how much they've paid, and where it's all located. And if it looks like the junk that I've seen, they need to either give in their resignations or you need to withdraw it. They shouldn't be functioning anymore. That money could be used elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Others for public comment?
Hi, my name is Haiku Unit, and I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to voice our opinion. I just want to say that the City Council, you guys are trusted servants. You guys are here to serve the citizens who pay the taxes. And a lot of people here in Coeur d'Alene, they work hard. They work long hours, they work 2 jobs, and they raise their children. And they don't really have, not everybody has really time to get involved in city business. And that's why you guys are the trusted servants for our people here who pay the taxes and work hard. And I think that you guys really need to safeguard, you know, just our way of living here and be really, really careful with our tax money. I personally think that it's never a good idea when we mix, you know, government and private businesses together, like which is what it is in this case in an urban renewal district. I'm really concerned about the eminent domain because, you know, like this other person said, we don't know who's going to be in charge in 5 or 10 or 15 years. And maybe somebody will change the rules, you know? I mean, we have no control over that today. So we need to be very, very careful, you know, what's going to be voted on and how it's going to be written, because we need to protect all citizens and the taxpayer of Coeur d'Alene. I also read that $3.4 million is going to be put up by the city of Coeur d'Alene, which means the taxpayer. That means people who work hard and who pay taxes. And then $19 million is from federal and state departments of transportation. But you know what? That's actually tax money too. Where do you guys think that, where is the federal government and state governments getting the money? It's from taxes, from citizens. Unless you think the feds are printing the money out of thin air. You know, and they might, but if they do and they keep doing it, you know, there is going to be a big blow up one day. I mean, we just can't keep printing money, you know. I mean, and I think that our city has to think into the future. Are we going to have a recession or not, you know? And then what, Kootenai Health wouldn't pay any property taxes? That is very troubling to me. And then I also read in the paper that the Lake District alone gives that Ignite Coeur d'Alene gets $1.9 million annually from the tax revenue. That's a lot of money, which really, you know, is being taken away from projects the city could invest in the city in different projects. So I really pray that you guys will think about all the citizens of Coeur d'Alene and us taxpayers and really hardworking people. And you know, and I'm not a property owner, I don't own property, but I want my children to own something in Coeur d'Alene one day. And I'm here for them. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you. Others wishing to give public comment, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Norma White. I live in Athol, and my address is P.O. Box 1053. And I'm here on behalf of people who live in the county and people who live in the city. I'm generally opposed to URDs because we're taking money from the taxpayers and giving it to developers. Developers who could be raising capital from the private sector. Why should we, who are forced to pay taxes, give it to the government and then the government give it to developers? I don't think that's equitable. And so I would urge you to vote no on this URD. I could go into more details. I had a lot more things to say, but I don't think I need to. I think you know where the issues are. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to come up?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Brent Regan. I live at 6100 East Borley Road, and I stand tonight in opposition of the Health Corridor URD expansion. I read the prospectus. I found it very thick, full of all kinds of words like visioning and shareholders and public-private partnerships and strategic planning. So these are good words. They must be the right words, so let's dive in and do it. Well, how about not? Each of you ran, I believe, on helping to maintain Coeur d'Alene's character and its personality and the things that have made it attractive and has become an attractive place to live without the central planning. I'm reminded of Nero when he burned down half of Rome so he could build a palace and a big statue of himself in an amphitheater. We don't need to do that. We don't need to take large swaths of the city and re-engineer it in a vision that is brought in from somebody else and to make it the same kind of boring, awful sameness that you see when you travel in the country. To go to any big metropolitan city, you can't tell where you are anymore because these buildings all look the same. Not to mention it's not really the role of central government, of government to do that, that kind of economic planning. And where's the blight? I mean, URDs are supposed to be applied to places where they're badly blighted and they can't attract economic development. Are you telling me this area right here, can't attract economic development? That's ridiculous. So saying that we have to do that, we have to go in and micromanage it is not the proper role of government. You have a tool. If you want to shape the city, you have a tool. It's called zoning. You say, do this kind of thing in this kind of area, and then let the private sector do its thing. Let individuals come in, because I guarantee you, you collectively are not smarter than the entire population of Coeur d'Alene collectively. Now, it's been said that URDs are funded through this incremental tax, which is to say that the property taxes are frozen and any improvement in there goes to the URD. The analogy I use is a bathtub. You guys set a budget. That draws a line in the bathtub, and the taxpayers have to fill the bathtub with tax dollars, okay, up to the line. URDs have a 5-gallon bucket in that bathtub, and the URDs come in and they pull that 5-gallon bathtub after the bathtub is full. What happens to the level? It goes down. And now the taxpayers have to put in additional money to make up for that, to bring it up to the line. And why? Because you guys have to fund the growth in the URD, okay? That expansion requires services, and we got to pay for those services, and we're not collecting property tax for those services. That money is going to the URD. And that's not just in the city. My taxes out in the county go up as well, because there's elements of the city taxes that get paid into the county, and if the city can't pay that, then the county has to pay it. So that growth isn't funded directly. It does come out of taxpayer pockets. It does end up as a tax increase. We are funding the development of that area. Everybody in the county is having to pitch in for it. And so I would ask you not to engage in this Soviet-style central planning. We've got the obelisk that was out in Riverstone with a hammer and sickle. And if you want, you can dust that off and bring it up and set it up and say, now we're going to do Soviet-style planning. But I would strongly encourage you not to. Thank you very much.
Others wishing to come up for a public comment, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is John Ness. I'm the CEO of Kootenai Health and a proud resident of Coeur d'Alene. I'd like to thank the City Council for their consideration of the health corridor proposal. And I'd also like to thank all of the citizens who have expressed concerns about this initiative. I think that will make this a much more thorough and complete process by expressing their concerns. To make an informed decision, I think it's important to remember where all of this work actually started. Where did this idea come from? In 2013, the Coeur d'Alene 2030 project began. Over 6,000 residents of the community answered the question, what do you want to see for Coeur d'Alene? In 2014, the city developed the Vision 2030 plan and then established the Coeur d'Alene 2030 as a separate 501c3 corporation to implement the plan and to guide our community's growth and development. One of the 6 areas identified in the plan is a category of health and safety for our community. Coeur d'Alene 2030 then coordinated with the Urban Land Institute for a technical assistance panel study of our community. The study offers expert, unbiased answers to land use, real estate, and traffic questions along the Ironwood corridor. The proposed health corridor concept came from their recommendation. So the community gave its input. A plan, Vision 2030, was developed and adopted, and work is progressing on that plan. This has been a collaborative, participative process including city staff, the Planning Commission, the City Council, Coeur d'Alene 2030, Ignite CDA, Kootenai Health, the Idaho Transportation Department, multiple private businesses, Ironwood neighbors, and members of the community. Everyone has worked together through numerous studies, analyses, and visioning sessions to identify problems and opportunities for the health corridor. Now let's talk about what this health corridor is really about. Number one, This is about job growth. Of the 20 fastest growing jobs in the United States, 12 of them are in healthcare. Kootenai Health is the largest employer in northern Idaho with 3,600 employees. By the way, 77% of our employees are female and their average age is 42 years old. Most of them are moms supporting their families. Creating an environment where healthcare jobs and jobs that support healthcare can grow helps the local economy. It creates opportunities for our children to find work here so they don't have to leave town to earn a living. And it ensures that those of us who live here have access to the health care we need close to home. Secondly, this is about solving complex traffic problems that continue to congest Ironwood Drive and its intersections with US Highway 95, Northwest Boulevard, and ultimately I-90. These intersections make up a big part of our community's front door and should provide easy and safe vehicle and pedestrian access. The Health Corridor Urban Renewal District is about responsibly improving traffic flow and access by investing in roads, parking, pathways, landscaping, green spaces, and bike paths. Third, this is about collaboration and partnership. It is about creating a place for private businesses to thrive and the medical community to grow. This includes not just Kootenai Health, but private physician practices, independent pharmacies, dentists, optical shops, fitness centers, banks, restaurants, hotels, and senior living centers. It's also about strengthening our adjacent neighborhoods to maintain affordable housing and providing an integrated health community. Finally, and most importantly, this is about a vision for our community. In 1965, our community was asked to support building a new hospital at the corner of US 95 and 990, a location that was considered way out of town in those days. Today, we would call that decision to build the hospital in its current location visionary. Tonight, we are looking to our City Council to make a decision that establishes an equally thoughtful vision that will benefit our community for the next 20 years and beyond. Kootenai Health's publicly elected Board of Trustees unanimously supports the proposed plan and is excited to work with the City of Coeur d'Alene and other groups on improving the health corridor for the benefit of the entire community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Others wishing to give public comment tonight?
Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. My name is Trish Walker. I am the mother of 5-year-old Weston Walker, who attends the little folks' daycare. From my understanding, the building of Embry Church could possibly be declared and removed, which would then remove that daycare facility, which is housed underneath the church. That daycare facility, I have no idea what the numbers are in regards to how many of those children's parents work right down here. But I can tell you, it is a Blue Star, Idaho child care facility. With that being said, it is one of the best. Child care is very, very difficult for us to find. My husband and I both work. We're both veterans. He's still in the Guard. I've already retired after 26 years. And I have to tell you, it is very, very difficult for us to find child care. We're on wait lists for a long time. And it took us months just to find this daycare. And we live in Post Falls. So I know that I'm not a resident of Coeur d'Alene, but My son's growth has exploded exponentially since he's been going to the little folks daycare. And so I'm just here to bring awareness that I may be the only parent that is here tonight, but please, when you're looking at the health corridor bill or the RIP project, please take into consideration of that daycare that is there. We need it. My son needs it, and his class has 24 kids in it, and he's in the 5-year-old class. They have infants and a kindergarten there as well. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
My name is Eileen Johnson, and I live at 1053 North 15th Street in Coeur d'Alene. And I just want to know how many of you have actually driven the new proposal. I'm not sure any of you have, but I did today. I started on Davidson Avenue, starting at Government Way, and went over to Northwest Boulevard. And they're basically older homes, but they're, well kept. And then I'm actually seeing a brand new home being built there, and I don't think they have a clue what's going to maybe happen to that new home. And then on Emma Street, we have the new Veterans Building, and there's lots of apartments. They're older, but in good shape on the outside. And then across 95, there's the Lincoln Professional Center. There's also a church that is called the Kootenai Kids Center. It used to be, I think, an LDS church. Albertson Shopping Center is going to be, be gone, and there's a lot of wonderful businesses there. And then in the main area, we have like Heritage Health, we have the Senior Center, we have a phone center, and this little daycare, which is not so little because I went over and took a look at it today. There's School District 271 building, which is new and wonderful, Morgan Stanley. And then at 1250, we have Health and Welfare and other professional offices. And the buildings are wonderful. And the most beautiful building, I hope they don't tear it down if this goes through, is the Riverview Tower. It faces Northwest Boulevard, and it is just an outstanding building. And if you make the curve at on Ironwood Drive, there's Twin Gables, which has just been remodeled. There's Peak Health and Wellness. There's dentist office and other small businesses. And then, of course, you go around and then there's the Medicine Man. And so everything is going really, really well, and it's a nice little area. It's something I think that Coeur d'Alene needs to keep just the way it is. And what I did notice, though, that Kootenai has already gotten their fingers into the pie. There used to be a little building that you bought wheelchairs from and so forth. Now it's the Kootenai Wound Care Center. There used to be, I think it was Jones Hand Clinic. It's now the Kootenai Hand Clinic. And then behind the Chinook Medical Building, which is another fairly new building and really nice, you'll find the Kootenai Dermatology and Plastic Reconstruction. So they're already making headway, so why don't they just privately do it with private business and then take some things that they want and keep doing this? But to destroy that whole area, it's just wrong. The only blighted area I saw was the Garden Motel. That was the only thing. And they should look into the Shopko. It's now available. Let them buy it. This is 263 acres. It's a huge undertaking, and I don't think the taxpayers should be burdened. There's no democracy in this if you pass this particular bill. Kootenai could easily move north, and they could have a complete new slate of building good infrastructure, have that open space they want. And then the only other thing I would like to say is I think Councilman English really should recuse himself because he does sit on the board of Ignite. I know it's legal, but I don't think it's ethical. And so please vote no to the urban renewal as proposed. Because once the council votes yes, if they happen to do this, the citizens lose control, and it's lost forever, and we get to pay and pay and pay. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come up? Come on up. Oh.
Hello, my name is Tracy Threet, and I live out in Athol. But I'm here for several reasons: family, friends, and then also fellow citizens and as a taxpayer. Upon first glance, I started looking at the Health Corridor Master Plan and its carefully constructed tool, which is being used to give an impression that is unbiased to any business or entity. And that's completely untrue. It appears the sole beneficiary is Kootenai Health. The loss of local businesses is a huge concern. The eminent domain is not only unfair, but to me is a little lacks integrity. We have a lot of buildings and people who have been there for decades. And what about those people, their businesses, and their employees? So are we going to do the bait and switch and shove these people aside who have been serving the citizens of this area for a long time to create these new jobs? What about their jobs? Why are we sacrificing or even talking about sacrificing these hundreds of jobs and this livelihood and these businesses to create these satellite medical buildings for Kootenai Health, and you have to be connected to Kootenai Health and it becomes a monopoly? One thing I noticed in the implementation area was to create a brand. Is Kootenai Health going to be a Mayo Clinic? I mean, whenever you create a brand, and that seems to be a more modern day thing, you're creating something that is going to be well known and far reaching. So is that the idea, is this visionary thing of creating a brand? Well, what about the local citizens? What about us taxpayers who are going to be asked to foot that? Because yes, I live in the county, but yes, county funds are going to be tapped into. And you have a lot of people in the county that their taxes keep going up, and a lot of fixed incomes from veterans and everything who are out there on these properties. They can't afford to keep having the property tax go up and up and up. And ultimately, that pot is going to be put into this, utilized for this plan if this is passed. I also looked at, lack of public open space and amenities to serve residents and employees as a reason for one of these. Well, we have over 55 lakes within local driving distance of Coeur d'Alene. There's plenty of green space, there's plenty of activities, there's plenty of places to go and do things. The obsolete buildings and infrastructure, what's considered obsolete? Is it because of the aesthetic value? Is it because one person decides that this is not to their liking of how it looks? These buildings that are being used, they're not obsolete. They're still usable. They have businesses and employees. They have not been declared, where you have to tear them down or anything like that. I realize my time is out. I only dug into 3 pages of this, and it's fairly well written, but if you sit down and look at it, it's very concerning, and I would appreciate if you guys would take into consideration all the citizens that will be impacted and losing their jobs by all this through eminent domain, and vote no, or take into further consideration about changes or modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others wishing to give public comment?
Hello, my name is Greg Mackenzie. This will be my first city council meeting, and I live at, you can mail me at P.O. Box 955 in Hayden, though I do live in Coeur d'Alene. So I wish to address 2 items, 19-118, the urban renewal one, and then 19-062, the new art purchase for $7,000. And first I want to start off saying that I do love Kootenai Health, and I value them, and I do want to see them grow. They're important to the community, but not this way is how I just want to emphasize. My kids have numerous times have utilized their NICU and several surgeries. So I care, and it's important to the community. But again, as a taxpayer, I want to say strongly no. not this way. And I have seen them grow, and they are growing, but not this way. So what I know about this urban renewal bill is that it will notably increase taxes. And just what I've learned just from listening to other members here speak to, I am just more and more concerned about it. I'm just troubled at this point. So I encourage you to vote no. And just as myself, I am in a highly paid single income family. So me and my wife, we have some kids. And an earlier commenter mentioned this area is becoming unaffordable. I just want to confirm that we feel that too. And we came here from a nearby state and been here in the area for 6 years now. And I can directly affirm that this statement that he said earlier is true. And just my heart's out for those other people like me with family at home who make less than me. I've a couple friends, we openly talk, and it's hard for them. So California, and people have mentioned that this urban renewal, that this health improvement will increase, attract high-paying jobs, and that's great, and I want that too. And I am a high-paying job in the area, but California is also an example where my friends get paid a lot, but they also have a lot of high expenses in life. And people are fleeing there, and I've fled there. So it's more than just high-income jobs in the area. It's also responsible use of taxpayer funds and keeping taxes low. And just want to emphasize that. And as I learn more about how this city's run and where my taxpayer funds are going, I just want to strongly encourage you to vote no to the $7,000 art purchase as well. So yes, that's all I have to say. I won't use my 3 minutes. Just please heed this taxpayer and vote no to both.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Terry Godbout. I know most of you. I'm here tonight for myself, also as a spokesman for the We the People Facebook page of 1,500 residents. I want to touch on one thing first before my primary item. We keep hearing these wonderful things about CDA 2030 and all this great stuff they're doing. But what we don't hear is that there are never agendas for their meetings publicly available. There are no minutes. There's no recordings. We don't know when they are. Nobody can attend them. And they're self-appointing. If somebody goes off the board, the rest of the board decides who is going to come on. And they're receiving, I think probably 60% of their budget is from city funds and Ignite funds. So there's a lot of heartburn on our group about this, about the lack of transparency, so we'd like to see that change. Now, the other issue is the health corridor thing. We threw together a quick petition on organize.com. In 2 days, well, it was a couple minutes ago, there's 127 signatures, got 124 on this copy, which I'll leave with you. And in essence, the group is not against the idea of a health corridor. We think it's a good idea. We disagree with a lot of the provisions in this one. Just briefly, because a lot of these have been covered before, the plan contains no contingencies for an economic downturn. Now, we are in the longest period of improving economic conditions in our country's history, and it's got to end sometime. I mean, as I understand it, the stock market dropped grossly today. So how can a competent financial person project 20 years of growth as it has been for the past couple of years? We're opposed to eminent domain. That's been well covered here tonight. We're uncomfortable, as I just said a moment ago, with CDA 2030 being a group of super citizens almost that get to have undue influence on the city. We feel the same way about Ignite, but at least Ignite the board members there are appointed by the council. So we don't like the trend of unelected officials having more to say about the way the city is being run. The plan there, you know, it's pretty. The plan, there's some great diagrams, but there are a lot of very vague things in this, the way it's written right now. No transparency. As someone mentioned a bit ago, where are the obsolete and underperforming buildings? Why are townhomes, condominiums, and hotels mentioned without specifics as to dates and locations? So we'd like to see the health corridor established, and but we don't think this document is done. I think we probably need at least another 6 months to really take a look at this with more citizen involvement. And I'll leave one copy with you. Thank you.
Others wishing to come forward to public comment?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is John Filler, and I pastored actually the church that is located kind of in the heart of the corridor, and been there for many, many years until the last couple of years. And in processing some of the things that have been said tonight, I think I would consider the generations again, the future. We were actually one of the first owners on Ironwood Drive. We bought 33 acres of Ironwood Drive, so we owned a lot of properties around there, and eventually began to really share our heart for vision for Coeur d'Alene and begin to sell off some of those properties because of our heart in honoring the city and honoring just the future. And so I guess my request tonight is that because I was raised here, my grandfather moved here in the early 40s, and I was raised here. This is home. I was, born at Lakeside General Hospital. Many of you remember that. But anyway, I just want to just say to you, my request is that you just honor the future as well in your decision, because I think there's a lot of questions in the proposal. I haven't had a whole lot of time to really look over that thoroughly, but I really feel like that there's some things that really need to involve more of the citizens' responses to the decision made on such a large parcel of land. And we're kind of right at the heart of that. So please consider that. All right, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there's someone right. Yeah, there we go.
Hello, my name is Steve Abbott, and I live at 8984 West Michael Way in Coeur d'Alene. So the purpose of a URD, what is that? It is to take an area that seems to be dying, lots of crime, lots of problems, torn down, or bad homes, bad businesses, right? That's the purpose of it. Yes? So as you drive through the area, do you see these buildings? From what I hear tonight, the testimony of those here have said no. That is a very vibrant, well-developing area. And it is very valuable property. Kootenai knows this. Kootenai Health knows this. And so if we, the taxpayers, are burdened with helping Kootenai out here and giving up our land, that puts a burden on us. And we are looking to you, as we voted for you guys, to take care of our interests. And so the URDs, if we look at Spokane, downtown Sprague, I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that area. It was an area that was very disparaged in the income. When you have a large disparity of income, you're going to have larger crime. There in the Ironwood area, there's not a large difference in income. And so you're not going to have crime. You're not going to have the degradation of the property values. So that's the number one thing. So if you vote yes tonight, what you're telling us all is that area, yeah, it's on the decline. It doesn't need to get, it needs improved. That's what you're telling us if you vote yes tonight. I recommend that you vote no. I mean, look around you. 90% of the people here today are really intelligent. I've listened to these guys. As an engineer, I think, oh, I'm pretty smart, right? No, these guys are smart. They've gone through this. They've dug into this, and they've said no. The taxes alone, the burden that you're going to put upon us, that's pretty arduous. So I, again, recommend that you vote no. We, the people, are asking you to say no to this.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come up tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ron Ayers, 9030 Hess in Hayden. I'm here in support. I think that the only thing missing from CEO Ness's presentation was a mic drop. If you listen and understand what he just said, it tells the whole story. It's amazing what Kootenai Health is and does and where they are going. We need to support it. Again, that begins and ends the argument. Now, to execute on that, private development needs incentives to take the risk to come in and execute the plan. People don't talk about the plan and what's involved with the risk that's involved with the private capital that's coming in to execute. An incentive to make that happen is a really big deal. It's necessary. This argument that it happens organically, I think the proof is already on the street that it's not. It doesn't happen organically. These incentives really matter. A broader perspective that I have, or a little bit more context, is directly to you, Mayor and Council, and what I've observed over the past few years in your tenures. And I want to commend you because you've taken some big, bold steps, aggressive steps, in order to improve our community. The Atlas Mill acquisition, redevelopment, and the urban renewal district to redevelop that property is going to have a positive impact on Coeur d'Alene forever. It's a super big deal. It really matters. And I wanted to say that's a bold and historic move, and I say bravo on that. I see this next move, the health corridor creation, as an extension of that action. I think it needs to be supported. There will be lots of housing and so forth in the Atlas Mill site. The job creation, not so much. The job creation engine is at Kootenai Health. So I also wanted to say that creation of this corridor is also bold and historic. And it is, and yet it isn't. It's simply an extension of the motions that you've already set forward to grow and to solidify our economic base. I think it really, really matters. I think CEO Ness, again, what he said, when you listen and read and understand what he said, there's the story. I think him and his team ought to have the chance to continue what they've already have been doing. Last thing, as far as awareness, several people have mentioned that they were not aware. I've participated in this since almost 3 years and have been to every meeting, every interaction, every public event, everything. There are more. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into this, and I had no trouble getting here, finding the information. And when you inform yourself, a huge percentage of the questions that have come up tonight have been answered. They're in the plan. They've already been addressed. Again, I say bravo, keep up the good work, approve this district, it's important. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come up?
Mr. Mayor, esteemed council members, excuse me, my name is Scott Hoskins. I live at 2916 Point Hayden Drive in Hayden Lake. And I'm here to speak to you as the chairman of the board of Ignite CDA. And I want to commend the board because the board created the Urban Renewal District to help plan and build your city. Mr. Ettinger was probably here at the time it was created, but thanks for your wisdom. And the wisdom of this board, guiding the Urban Renewal Board, created this building, McEwen Park, the new White House was moved in for the North Idaho Museum, the Atlas Mill site, Kroc Center, higher education corridor, and we look forward to working with you and the wisdom that you guys have and will guide us into creating a new health corridor district. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward tonight for public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I received a public comment on, I got a message this morning and the gentleman wanted me to read it into the record. This is from Jim Doty, who is a part owner of Peak Fitness. Hi, Dan. I sure hope the healthcare corridor does not go through as presented without major safeguards to protect current property owners and taxpayers. A clear study as to who individually and corporately benefits needs to be done to ferret out all the conflicts of interest. This is another land grab similar to the education corridor in McEwen. The majority of the costs will ultimately be on the taxpayers. Thank you, Jim Doty.
Okay. All right. So this is last call. Hello there.
My name is Michelle Klingensmith, and I am a resident of Coeur d'Alene. I just found out about this, and I actually rushed down here. I feel kind of distressed, to be honest with you. My story in a nutshell is my husband and I moved across the country. You can tell by my accent, I'm not from here. From the deep south to the great northwest. And you know, what drew us here is the unique opportunity and the creativity that is here in Coeur d'Alene. And I just have to think, you know, if you take one entity, which is Kootenai Health, compared to hundreds of entities, you know, how much creativity can you get out of one entity compared to hundreds? And that's what makes this place special, is it's not cookie cutter. I'm also a real estate agent. I work with a lot of people coming in. Nobody says, you know, we need more things that look like Portland or Seattle or, you know, all of these places. They love it because of its uniqueness and its creativity, its individuals coming together to make something really special. And what's really causing me distress is my church, Embers Church, is on Ironwood Drive. And we have big plans and visions to use every ounce of the 3 acres that we have to do something wonderful and creative for our community. And so I just ask that you guys would consider Coeur d'Alene staying on the path that you're supposed to be on and not veering off so far, trying to make it like everything else. And the last thing I would like to say is for you to please consider that if you shut down a church, you've actually pushed hundreds of people out of their home that's important to them every single week. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Sir, I think you've already given public comment, right?
I just want to give a point of
No, wait, just one public comment. You're welcome to come back next time. Okay. Just one a night. So anyone else wishing to give an initial public comment?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Drake. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm also a member of that church. In fact, I'm one of the pastors of the church. And for decades, we've been pouring into that particular property. And the property itself means something to us. To a business, maybe it's just a business. They can move to another building. It doesn't matter. But for us, the actual land matters to us. And I know there's a lot of people that feel the same way. I don't see why Kootenai Health couldn't develop in other places and have satellites in other places. I don't understand why they would need to move people who've established their homes, established their churches, established their daycares and their businesses in that area. That why would they have to move when they've been doing just fine there? And there's plenty of people that are benefiting from it now. So I also would ask you to say no until you can put those safeguards in place to protect the people that have been there for decades, so they can't just get shoved out of their property. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to come up? All right, we will move on the agenda to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement tonight? Dan.
Well, I would like to comment because I know some of the folks may not stay through the whole thing, and in particular, got a letter from Mr. Jorgensen, medicine man, and know exactly where you are there because I worked across the street for about 3 years, and one of the things, and we're going to cover all kinds of things tonight, probably later, but I've had the thought, and I've not shared it with the Ignite board or anything else, but there is an awful lot of anxiety about even the potential for an urban renewal district to use eminent domain. That is an incredible, awesome responsibility, and I think I largely agree with the concept that, there are other ways to do that. There are other folks that would probably have the mechanism. I guess my message is Idaho legislature, and I don't know if Senator Sousa is still here, but why don't you look at tweaking that and not have the urban renewal districts even have the ability to do eminent domain? I certainly can't imagine of the case where we'd ever use it, but I can't say nobody ever would down the road either. So we'll cover a lot of other things, but I just think, well, now that's one practical thing that I would be happy to work on that with somebody. So,
okay. Anyone else have anything? Dan.
Oh, no, let's Amy go first.
I was just going to apologize for my tardiness tonight as I was trying to rush back from a meeting in Boise. So I apologize for being late and glad I could catch most of public comment. And I was keeping up on my drive from Spokane, so I didn't miss much.
Were you watching it? Like
I had a driver. So my son picked me up so I could.
Right. Just making sure. Dan, did you have something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to say a bit of trivia and a bit of history. We'll do the history first. So in 2016, this council voted to use eminent domain to condemn property on Government Way. It was the Silver Lake Mall. The vote was 5-1. I don't need to tell you who the one was. Also, as a bit of trivia, I've seen a couple of people come up here talk about the history of urban renewal. It is true, in 1997, this council formed the Urban Renewal Agency. What a lot of people probably don't know is that it was a split vote. There were 2 council people who voted in favor, there were 2 who voted against, 2 were absent, and the mayor broke the tie. So that was how it was created. Little trivia for you.
All right, anyone have anything else?
Can I just, since we're doing a couple follow-ups, I just wanted to find out, I did talk with Mary Sousa on the phone, or actually we texted each other. Is the plan available online? I know that the entire plan was in the agenda packet, but if you could just answer that before anyone leaves, is the entire plan available online?
And I can. It is online on the Ignite site. What Ms. Sousa was referring to was there is a new law that requires all urban renewal agencies in Idaho to supply all the plans for all the urban renewal agencies to the State Tax Commission. This law is not being obeyed. You can go to the repository and you will not find the plans on the repository, and that's because there's no enforcement.
But that's a separate issue than what she brought to the podium.
And I know she made it sound like
you're talking about something we don't even need to talk about. What I'm trying to determine
is available on their site.
Is it online? And it is online in 2 places I know of, the Ignite board, and it was the entire plan was in the packet that came to council last week, I believe.
Yeah.
Every page of it. Okay, that's all I want to clear up.
Right, yeah, but I think she was referring to the state repository,
That's
which
fine.
is what she's referring to.
All right, anyone else have any comments? Okay, Woody, how about the consent calendar?
Oh, boy.
You weren't so anxious to get to that.
I would just like to move to approve the consent calendar, including Resolution 19059.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yeah.
Motion carried. Other business, we're going to talk about possibly naming a park. Bill Greenwood.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm pleased and honored to bring to you this evening for your consideration naming a portion of a park called Persons Park after a guy who has spent 50 years of his life in service to our community. So my Park and Rec Commission voted unanimously for this. And in my staff report, we talked about 3 different locations. And since that time, it's been brought to my attention through family members that the location that they prefer is the backstop at 15th and Garden. One of my commissioners wanted to let you know that he's still not pleased with the calls that you made there. You called him out too many times. There were a couple people that talked about that, and you and your brothers that were all blind. So this is what we have for you today. This concept here, the only thing I think I'm going to tell the designer to change is the word Idaho in all caps. It doesn't really fit our logo as well, so it looks a little bit out of balance. That was Mr. Timeson's observation today. It doesn't look well on here. I know that it does there, but it just doesn't seem to translate. So I'm going to have him do it in lower caps and obviously the cap I. But anyway, this is going to be done in wood, so it'll be kind of a relief similar to a sign that we have at Northwest Boulevard and Garden, the Service Club sign. So with that, I'll entertain any comments or questions you may have for me.
I did want to comment a little bit on umpire Ron Edinger. Says, home plate or the plate when you're a softball player is this wide. So that's where the ball would come across and land, and that's where you would call strikes. For Ron, the plate was this wide. Wouldn't you say so, Ron?
Oh, maybe.
Any questions for Bill on that? Well, I think it's a great honor for us to have served with Ron, and we had a wonderful celebration a little while back, and. You got a couple more meetings, Ron, so you have a few more things to say. But I think this is a great honor for Ron, so we'd be looking for...
I'd be happy to make a motion to recommend an area in Personfield to be designated as Ron Edinger Park.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there won't be any opposed. So motion carried. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Bill.
So we'll move on to the acceptance of canvass election results. What do we need to do there, Renata? Just make a motion?
This is a simple in Idaho code requirement that you accept the county canvass of the vote.
Okay, so we'd be looking for council action on that.
Who wants to do that?
Someone who wasn't in the election can do it.
How about one of the elected? Oh, jeez, you guys. I'd like to make a motion to accept the canvassed election results as presented by Kootenai County and the results be reflected in the minutes of this meeting.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll move on to resolution number 19060, approval of the purchase of a replacement generator for City Hall for the amount of $48,878. Renata.
Sure, I don't know. Troy and I were arm wrestling over who got to present this tonight, but it's my honor to present it. I have been talking with our staff for a while about the need for the replacement of this 1978 generator. When we had a power outage in August, the generator failed, which made our server room go down here at City Hall. Our server room has the network that has police and fire communication lines involved. So it unfortunately took them out for a while. They were having to use cell phones to communicate with dispatch, and it wasn't the most effective public safety tool at that time. So our hope is really to get this replaced and get us back in working order so that if we ever have any sort of disruption of service like that again, We were also able to fix a secondary backup line with Intermax through McEwen Park, so we have another backup. But the generator is super important, and it's the only one we have here, and it's just limping along at this point with the hopes of a brand new one being installed. Stand for questions.
Questions for Renata?
I have to ask, so we got 40 years out of this thing?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, it took one good strike. It was down. But it's really hard to find parts for now and very expensive to fix with the hope that it will last. So it's a recommendation of building maintenance to purchase new.
So if we get another 40 years out of this, it's only $1,200 a year, right?
Cross our fingers.
Make things
I'm not sure you'll get that much time out of the building, but we'll take it out of the generator.
That's wild. It's good to see old stuff still around, though, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Renata, this has to come out of our fund balance since this is an unbudgeted item.
Yes, there are some funds in the building maintenance account because they had difficulty hiring some maintenance staff, so they do have some funding available there and some additional funds left over from another project.
Good, but regardless.
But essentially fund balance.
And that's good, but regardless, it seems like it is a vital expense and it's something that we can't just put off. Okay.
Any other questions for Renata? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
So move to approve let's make sure I'm on the right thing here. Move to approve Resolution 19060, which is authorizing the expenditure of funds for an unforeseen expense of the replacement of a 1978 generator at City Hall in the amount of $48,878.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Kukin?
Aye.
English?
Yes.
Motion carried. We'll move on to item number 4, resolution number 19-061, approving an agreement with Diamond Parking, Inc. for parking services management. This is also the category that we had amended the agenda to add the item for Republic Parking. So I'll turn it over to Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Yes, we will begin with the protest of the selection for the parking management services. This just came to the city yesterday. So I'll give you a brief staff report, and then with your permission, we are scheduled to have Mr. Taylor from Republic come and speak. Again, should council affirm the selection of Diamond Parking, Inc., known as Diamond for Parking Management Services, or modify the selection or commence the request for proposal process over. The city duly advertised a request for proposal for parking management services. Republic Parking, responded. The selection committee chose Diamond and entered into negotiations for an agreement. That is in your packet, a proposed agreement. Republic timely filed a protest of the selection of Diamond pursuant to Idaho Code 672806-2J and 672806A4. Council must review the selection and determine whether to affirm or modify the decision or choose to begin the RFP process anew. The RFP process involves the selection of a contractor followed by negotiations with the selected contractor to reach an agreement. The determination of Republic's protest may result in a financial impact on the city as the total cost of the parking management agreement is affected by the choice of the contractor and the negotiations with that contractor. The amount of financial impact is unknown at this time. The city has also been in communication with Republic since it just did happen. They have been very responsive to say that this is a process that they agree with to come over and make this happen so quickly. Republic's protest concerns the overall scoring process and technical issues. First of all, Republic notes that the maximum points under the category of financial was 20, or 20% of the total points available. The staff report states that the primary reason for selecting Diamond was its financial proposal. Therefore, Republic suggests that the selection committee did not properly follow the scoring criteria. In addition, Republic asserts that Diamond's financial proposal did not comply with the specifications of the RFP and the scope of work described in said RFP, and it was different from the scope described in the agreement which was negotiated with Diamond. The RFP states that the city reserves the right to select the contractor on the basis of the proposal submitted or to conduct interviews with the highest scoring contractors following evaluation and scoring of the proposals, whichever is determined to serve the needs of the city. The city reserves the right to seek clarification of any or all proposals. Further, the evaluation of the proposals will be based on the criteria listed in the RFP. Each of the members of the selection committee evaluated the proposals received and then met to discuss the proposals. Points were awarded by each member in each category for each proposal within the parameters of the RFP. Total points for each response were calculated. Each of the members scored Diamond's proposal above the other proposals. All of the scores compiled with the criteria set up in the RFP. Republic also feels that the evaluation committee may not have had an appropriate amount of time to fully evaluate the proposals, because 90 minutes to adequately review 3 proposals is not enough. Also, Republic was concerned that the committee saw the financial guarantee to be more important than customer service and argued that its own proposal offered better customer service than Diamond's. The response to the RFP were opened on the 12th of November. The responses were provided to the selection committee shortly thereafter. The members of the selection committee individually evaluated the proposals and then met for approximately an hour and a half on the 25th day of November. The selection committee, as shown by the evaluation forms, considered both the financial and the customer service aspects of the proposal. So again, we bring this to you as quickly as we received it. Thank you for receiving this information. I sent it out electronically, and now, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we have the representative from Republic come forward.
That would be fine.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having us tonight. Troy pretty much read the content of our original letter, but one of the things that I want to point out that was most prominent in the RFP itself, it did not mention that the city of Coeur d'Alene used a mobile license plate recognition system to do its patrolling on street and off. For us to prepare a performa or prepared budget for this RFP, it was assumed that all patrolling on street and off was done on foot. We did not have enough time to prepare for doing a mobile LPR, so we assumed that. A mobile LPR is a dramatic change in the cost of labor. It can reduce labor by 75%. Therefore, we didn't have the opportunity to know that there was already a mobile LPR system in place in Coeur d'Alene when we prepared our budget. Furthermore, one of the things that we saw in the contract that sits before you tonight that was going to be approved is that Diamond Parking is not required to have an office under the agreement. The RFP stipulated it. For us, that was a $36,000 investment that we put into our budget to perform the duties outlined in the RFP. So one of the curious things we wanted to know is, why was it required in the RFP but not in the agreement the City of Coeur d'Alene put forward to Diamond Parking earlier later last month in November? Our goal here tonight is not to stop the award. It's to hopefully have the city reevaluate the RFP, have the RFP put out in a more detailed manner with a defined scope of work with all the details, such as the LPR that's in current use. We would like to see the city do one of two things. One, reissue the RFP. However, we understand that is time-consuming and costly. The second alternative we would like to recommend is allow the responders who provided an RFP response to the City of Coeur d'Alene for the parking management and on-street services to resubmit a proposed budget based on the known information that we have today. That is what we're asking. All right. Questions?
Any questions?
Yes, what's your name?
John Meek.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Troy, I guess a question would be, he had raised several points, the Republic had raised several points, and maybe just reiterate the responses. I guess one of the questions on the mobile license plate reading, Republic are they based out of Spokane?
They have an office in Spokane. They're a very large organization, so they are, but yes, they have a Spokane office. My response to that would be, it's a request for parking management services, and we were wide open to questions. We put that in the RFP to contact us if you had questions. I've got a council member that zipped over here not that many minutes ago from Spokane, could have come over and met with us. We were wide open to any of that. They did a lot of work in their RFP. It was highly noted that way. So we were wide open. We were open to suggestions because they're in the business. Yes, we've moved forward with that type of technology, but it wasn't forbidden that they ask that and or propose it.
Okay. And then Mike, I would have a question because I know that Randy and you had taken the time to go through those items, and from your perspective, maybe give your opinion on the items that they had brought up as a protest.
I think Troy answered part of it. Is questions could be asked. We solicited invitations for proposals, and if you had questions about details, you could ask. The other thing, once the contract or proposed the proposal is selected, and this went through a committee that scored all the proposals, they look at it, and then a proposed contract that's before you tonight is negotiated, and so there's no ironclad, set-in-stone contract going into this because there is some details to be negotiated. Troy might know more about the negotiations regarding the building or having a presence here, but I think that's something that can go forward based on negotiations in the contract.
And Troy, it was technically a request for qualifications. That's called an RFP, but was it a request for qualifications or a request for proposal?
It was a proposal for management services. And council members, Councilmember Miller, Councilmember English were a party to the decision-making process, and we spun around in 24 hours after the decision was reached and worked with Diamond. So you have a contract that actually was multiple contracts boiled down to this that included moorage, boat launch, parking garages, on-street parking, and library lot was in there. So we were basically chiseling away probably 35 pages down to what's in this packet. I know that I could add that detail for Diamond to have an office in Coeur d'Alene. It was probably, I know it was in one of those contracts, so that would probably be a technical error on our part. And we can sure put that in there because the RFP was very specific to that.
And so Kiki, you were involved, and I said like Dan English was involved too, and maybe give us just some oversight on the selection process. There were several people involved, kind of a cross-section of the community, and they all had score sheets, and maybe describe a little bit about that.
Sure, and we went through the RFP in the beginning to make sure that any new things that we'd incorporated into the parking management request, i.e. annual permits or new parking lots, we went through that. What I recall is, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to be misquoted on that, but there was a lot of latitude in this proposal for a prospective vendor to add efficiencies or ways to manage parking better. So it wasn't just here's the ABCs and you put your price tag to it. There was some latitude for them to say, we excel at this particular customer service feature, or we are better at wayfinding and signage. And so there was some latitude in this request for us to grade this criteria by. And I think the fact that a mobile LPR, new acronym for me, was not called out by name, I don't think that it was not also avoided in the proposal. This is our system, and we have this many vehicles, and this is what we do, and so I think that there was a little bit of latitude in the proposal so that we could get the best ideas from the vendors and have everybody individually do that. We did have a group of people. We had one of our captains from our police force there. We had our city attorney, Troy Tymus, and myself. Dan English from the council as well. Dan sits on the parking commission. Ann Melbourne sits on the parking commission. She was there, and one of the folks who graded. And Lacey Moen, who was a former city council candidate, and she also is a business owner that's right down on Front Street across from McEwen and has been very involved in parking. All of those people had the opportunity to pick up all of the submitted proposals the week before we met, so they had a chance to review them, talk about them. I had requested that Troy contact the vendors and have them available by phone in case that there were questions that came up, and we'd have a chance during that meeting to talk to them. As the scoring and was tabulated and the discussion came together, Diamond's point factor nullified the reason to call on questions for the others in some of the folks who graded that. And Dan, if you have some other thoughts you want to add to this, you know, please do. But that's my recollection of the day, and I think that you know, those are good suggestions. I do think we're too far down time-wise in my thought to reissue, since you know we're going to have to consider if the reason we're talking about this at all is some substantial losses here. But I also am not certain. I want to pick up that RFP again, because I can swear there was reference to an office required in the city somewhere in it. So that's always been one of our things that was involved in the contract. So
in one of the documents, it might be what just came tonight, but I read something that said that, you know, 90 minutes, you know, wasn't enough time to really read through those and all of that, and just to make clear that they were available to all of the people ahead of time and read them ahead of time. And actually, I guess it's maybe not germane to this, but there was a third bid or response to it too. But anyway, that 90 minutes was not certainly the only time that we saw that.
And the scoring criteria was made available in advance as well. So they had an opportunity to be prepared when we sat down to discuss it.
So Renata, we have Republic's protest. Do we have to act on that before we would move to the next step?
That'd be a question for legal. Do they need to take formal motion action or simply make comment?
Well, since we do this all the time, I think they've made their protest. You can proceed to then get into the contract itself, go forward with that, and then at that point make a motion to, you know, move on with something else or adopt the contract. So I think it doesn't take two motions. I think you can just proceed into the body of this contract and go forward with that, if that's what you want to do.
I just wanted to add one other thing, unless anyone else had any other discussion. There were 3 people who submitted proposals. They were very, very different. Republic's proposal was extremely professional. It scored very high, and I was really appreciative to have the ability to look at 3 different options for the city. And so I hope that I appreciate their enthusiasm and even coming to the meeting to protest and bringing up these good points, and hope that in the future they'll take a look at us again. But I just wanted to tell all of them who responded, thank you very much. I appreciated having multiple contractors to review.
So Woody.
So here's another take. So Troy, we talked about this. I was asking how this was going, and you were somewhat surprised, as I recall, that this particular company was so high, cost-wise. I think we said something. It just didn't. So with his comments about a vehicle that he didn't know we already had, that it seems like it would seem to kick it into a gear where you guys would just go, well, shoot, rebid it. Problem that I can see in the rebid is that they basically know what Diamond's going to come forward with. We go through these things every once in a while. A bid gets kind of messed up, screwed up, a little misconceptioned, and we usually kind of bend over to fix it. And I'm just wondering, is that not you don't feel comfortable with that?
So let me clarify a couple things and share my comfort. The contract that was in place with Diamond was shared with everybody. So they already knew what the city had contracted to because it's public information. So the look at what we have brought to you, that's not a challenge at all for me. The challenge in the protest from my desk would be the fact that they hadn't done a couple of more questions about a proposal. They have a lot of work that went into their proposal. The committee did yeoman's work of working through that, looking at all the benefits. They're a very large, strong company. If I had a do-over for Republic, it would have been make a phone call, do the request, and we would have responded that, yeah, we have license plate recognition. Or better yet, drive over to Coeur d'Alene and see what we're running up and down the street. It stands out quite well. So that's the hard part from Troy's desk in putting together an RFP. So it's a proposal. It's not low bid. So I want to eliminate the fact that the dollars are a portion of the decision, but not all of the decision. So we knew that none of the proposals would be perfect for the contract, including Republic's.
Mayor Woodmeyer and Woody, I might add that the RFP required or obligated all the submitters to investigate what we had going on the ground. So it put an obligation on them to check us out, see what our current system was.
Okay, thanks. That helps clarify all that.
Amy.
I just have a point of clarification. I think Mr. Meek stated that in the RFP there was a requirement for an office. However, in the contract in our packet, that requirement was an oversight.
It probably got blended out, and we
Okay.
can sure add it.
Okay, so in,
It's just a proposed contract, right? No. Good catch, yes. We definitely want that.
Don't we currently have that?
We currently do in one of the 4 contracts that we were blending together.
Okay.
So Troy, do you have any other information? So we'll move on to the next step, which is to, the recommendation of the committee was Diamond Parking. You have negotiated with Diamond Parking. Council has a copy of that agreement. And do you have any highlights of that? And then we can move forward with that.
Again, we do appreciate the 3 proposals that came in, the subcommittee that did the work. Again, we're putting together a contract proposed to be with Diamond to manage the city parking lots, the McEwen parking facility, the Coeur d'Alene Avenue parking garage, the mooring docks, the 3rd Street boat launch, the on-street parking in the downtown core, overseeing Rosenberry Drive, West Hubbard, and the library parking lot. So during the negotiation, probably the biggest item we looked at were the fees for credit cards. And that was determined to be an expense that the city bears. It continues to go up, so that is a change, although it's a cost of doing business. In summary, the management for the parking lots, Diamond is proposing to guarantee us $90,000 per year, and they will pay the city of Coeur d'Alene 94% above $188,000 per year. Again, 94% above $188,000. Previously, we had a guarantee of $90,000 per year, with Diamond paying 92% of funds in excess of $165,000. We are breaking out the management fees for the parking garage on Coeur d'Alene Avenue and McEwen. Those expenses come to us directly. They are contracting to have less than $89,900 for McEwen and $67,400 for the Coeur d'Alene Avenue garage. That is done because of the way in which they were financed with urban renewal dollars. That is what we currently have for McEwen. So that is normal. The McEwen facility, they were previously capped at $72,396 under the prior agreement. So for the mooring docks, the management fee would be a flat $300 per month. That's down from the $350 in the current contract. We split the same dollars for the launch as previously, and their management fee is proposed to be $43,200 per year, where it's currently $39,300 to do all the on-street. What they did in that negotiation was we currently had bolted on the library since it opened up, and we needed to enforce the parking up there because it was not being adhered to, and they threw away that expense and just put it back into that $43,200. So a quick overview, it looks very close to what we had with Diamond previously. There's a couple of positive benefits in costs going down. The big one is the new Coeur d'Alene Ave garage going in there. And then, as you have seen, we're going to do our best to continue license plate recognition to get that in our parking lots. And that would be another vehicle that the city would buy, so that's not part of the contract. But that's a going forward process. So that was in the staff report. I'd like to thank you for taking a look at all of this in a quick hurry on the appeal or the protest. And I stand for any questions.
Questions for Troy. Kiki.
Troy, what are the term dates of the contract?
As soon as you approve it and we get Diamond to agree to it. But we're pretty much looking at a January 1. The current contract has a maturity date of December 15th, so that was another date that we were willing to work on. So we are pushing to make it all happen and be ready to have permits for our locals in McEwen and Memorial, $10 and $20 for Kootenai County residents.
And it's 3 years?
3-year contract.
Other questions for Troy? All right, if we don't have any questions, we'll be looking for council action.
Okay. I don't.
I need a beer. Oh, is this on me?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys. Let me see. I'd like to make I'd like to approve the resolution 19061 approving the agreement with Diamond Parking for parking services management.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be opposing this. I think we should give the other guys a fair shot. I also have issues regarding Diamond and its customer service. So I think I'd like to see that addressed, and just keeping up with the same old is not going to do the job. So I will be voting no.
Kiki.
Was there, just discussion, any issues you had with the ranking criteria in the RFP?
Well, no, well, you did the right, I mean, I actually asked Troy for copies of everything, because I wanted to see it. I think it would have helped me a lot more to have like minutes or notes or something so that I could understand what the process was, because that wasn't available to us. So don't have any questions on something I've never seen.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure we're doing the right thing, and this wasn't an easy task for this group to come together, and oftentimes we have subcommittees come together that the rest of us have to rely on doing the boots on the ground work to get this done. So they did go through a real process, and I'll reiterate, I don't know whether the whole vehicle issue in itself, based on just the financial picture, would have put Republic ahead whether we change this or not, the way that it was scored, frankly. So I appreciate their willingness to be here and protest it and discuss it, but coming in after the fact saying, well, I don't like Diamond, I'm not sure how our committee could have been charged with doing a better job, and that's what I guess I was looking for.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the committee did the adequate job that it did, but there are some things that were mentioned during the discussion here tonight that caused me some concern regarding the vehicle, and it seems like, did they have all the information, or, I don't know. Did they come here and do their homework? I don't know. Really just a lot of question marks, but more importantly, with Diamond, I know there's been a lot of issues with members of the public who just don't like the level of customer service, which reflects on us. And I thought one of the reasons we were doing this was to see if we could find something better than Diamond, but it seems like we're just doing the same old. And sometimes it seems easier to go with the company that you've always been going with,
Well, trust me, it wasn't easier.
So. But the contract kind of reflects a lot of things that we were already doing, so.
But
I'm not questioning the process.
And I think in the last, obviously this year that we've been put some bright lights on public parking. We've talked about it a lot. We have worked with Diamond. They have acknowledged some customer service issues that needed to be better, and they have improved. We had a hiccup over the weekend that was a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes, and contacted them over the weekend, and they fixed it over the weekend. So they acknowledged it. I think we all learned. I'm grateful for the committee because I do think they put in a lot of time and homework in making this selection, and so I'm appreciative of that. Ron.
How many years has Diamond had the contract?
Troy, how many years?
27.
How many?
27 years.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Renata, roll call, please.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Nope.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Motion carried. So now we'll move on to Council Bill number 19-1018. And I've recused myself on all of the issues in discussion of this, and so I'll turn it over to Council President McEvers to take it from here.
Wait, go have a beer.
There you go.
So since we've done this, we did this 2 weeks ago. We had our kind of discussion and we got to this point. And I think since then, and these folks showing up and these concerns that came up over the last couple weeks and tonight, of course, I think they need to be addressed so that we are comfortable making whatever decision we're going to make. I've asked Tony to come up and give us a little history. Some things that I've learned recently in doing the research on this is some history of how we got here with urban renewal. Urban renewal goes back 97. I think I was on planning and zoning at that time, so I got to see it come through, and it didn't make any sense. We were doing something about dirt where there used to be a mill, and it wasn't even in the city, and I remember thinking that was so confusing. Well, we've got a lot of history now, you know, and I thought, Tony, if you can kind of explain where we've been and how we are at this stage, some of the things we talked about last week that helped me kind of.
So do you want to start off when the agency was formed or how the districts were?
Yeah, you can just go to the pictures. It's easier than having to listen to you just talk.
Okay,
all
no
right. Offense.
I
love you talking.
I appreciate that vote of confidence, Commissioner. So on the screen here, you just kind of have a depiction of our existing districts as was shared before. The agency was formed in 1997, and our first district was a Lake District, which is kind of highlighted in this light blue area, which is downtown, midtown, Northwest Boulevard. This is Lowe's, this is the Croc Center up here. 2003, a new district was formed, the River District, which is this darker blue area here. And then just recently in 2018, the Atlas District was formed, which is the old Atlas Mill Site area. And the area in pink is the area that we're talking about tonight as the proposed health corridor district boundary.
So let's go back to the beginning of, well, what did we call that one? You called it the Lake District?
Lake District, yeah.
Lake
It was formed in
District.
1997, has a 24-year term, and it expires in 2021. So we got just a couple years left before that district expires. The River District also has a 24-year term. The Atlas District has a 20-year term, and the proposed term for the health corridor is 20 years. That's the maximum allowed under current law.
Okay. So let's go back to Riverstone. So I remember when Riverstone was just gravel and dirt and.
It was growing some champion knapweed back in the day. Yeah.
And then we drew the circle around it and said, we're going to make an urban renewal district out of that. And then what did you do?
Well, the Riverstone area was included in the Lake District at that time. And so the council saw the vision to include that brownfield in the urban renewal district. And just to refresh everybody's memory, in 2000, 2001, John Stone came to the agency and said, I have a great vision for this mill site, but I need some public help on a public-private partnership because I can't do it on my own. I just can't make it work financially. So he said, would the agency be willing to fund $1.5 million in public improvements, a new road, the intersection on Northwest Boulevard, to kind of help get his project off the ground? And the board said yes, they'd be happy to commit to that, those public improvements, but the deal would be that the developer, John Stone, go ahead and pay for those developments up front, those public improvements up front, and that the agency would reimburse him with tax increment revenues generated specifically from his project. And that's how that Riverstone got off the ground. And over the years, I believe when it was established in 1997, the base value of that area was $3 million, and the current build-out area is over $90 million. So the way these successful urban renewal districts work is that you take the wealth created in a certain part of the district and redeploy it in certain areas that can't regenerate themselves. That's how we did all the improvements in downtown Coeur d'Alene. We did all the improvements in Midtown. We did the the higher education campus that was discussed earlier. So that's how the wealth is created to do these great community projects in these districts.
So a developer came to you and said, I would like to develop this, but I need some help.
Correct.
And we are able to draw the line, freeze the taxes. At that time, they weren't even in the city. And that's the increment, the difference. And that's what he paid for that infrastructure.
He paid for the infrastructure up front. We reimbursed him over time from project-specific tax increment revenues.
So he had to build something to generate new taxes, and you used that to pay him back for the original infrastructure.
Yes.
And then what else came out of that? Did we have a plan? Did he have a plan when he came in?
Oh, absolutely. He had a master plan that he intended to do, and he got off the ground and started doing that. And then the Great Recession hit in 2008, 2009, and plans changed, the whole economy changed, and his originally envisioned plan did not materialize, and he made changes due to market conditions.
Did the recession impact urban renewal at all?
Sure, sure.
In which way?
Well, we didn't have as much increment generated by some of his proposed projects. So, what actually gets built and then is assessed by the county assessor and put on the tax rolls is what generates the property tax revenues.
So what kind of impact did that have on other taxing entities?
I'm not sure. The Great Recession?
Right.
I think it hurt everybody. I mean, everything slowed, the economy slowed down, so a lot of building didn't occur. There was, just kind of a lull in the market, so a lot of things were just kind of put on the side, and a lot of the money just sat on the sidelines waiting for the times to recover.
Any questions?
So I think there was a question on the table somewhere here in the last day or so, is if there is a recession, then will taxpayers outside the district end up funding to cover those costs if those loans aren't able to be paid? I think that's the question we're trying to talk about.
No, the district is kind of a self-funding entity. So if we would enter into a type of a reimbursement agreement with a developer, their development would dictate how much tax revenue is generated. So if the economy slows down, their reimbursement schedule would slow down with it. So there wouldn't be any obligation to any entities outside of the district. If we do have a recession or a slowdown, then certain projects might not get off the ground as quickly as we would hoped. But that is something that no one can predict when and how deep something might happen.
But you don't come back out to the city to ask for money to fund any of those loan payments?
No.
It stays within the district?
Yes.
Any questions for him?
Well, I think just to talk a little bit about what are the reasons for creating an urban renewal district. We've heard about, kind of focusing on, gee, that area was blighted, it's easy to see, but this area, I guess obsolete's in the eye of the beholder or some things, but could you talk about those general categories?
Sure. The Ignite CDA, as well as all the urban renewal agencies in the state, operate under two chapters under Idaho Code, Chapter 20 and Chapter 29. Chapter 20 focuses on deteriorated areas in a community. Chapter 29 focuses on economic development in communities. And so that's what we employ. We work under both chapters. This is more of an economic development opportunity district. There's not a lot of blighted areas as people have shared, but so that is not the focus on this area. It's more for economic development to kind of, as you heard tonight, create more community vibrancy up there, create more jobs, create more value for the community.
Go ahead, Amy.
Tony, can you address some of the concerns from the church members about losing their building or losing their church, and paint a broad picture of what that future looks like for some of those property owners who are fearful of that happening?
Yeah, I'll put this graphic on the board here. So once again, this is a long-term vision concept for the corridor. You see there are roads being straightened out, there are new buildings being built, and people, have seen, these overlays. And that's basically what they are right now. They're overlays, and they're visions of what could happen. As I shared 2 weeks ago, this is not how this will look when it's all built out. Things will change, market conditions will change. This road might not be as straight as it is. We will pursue this strategy, and as I shared last meeting, the first step would, if this district is formed, is to conduct a traffic analysis, to partner with stakeholders, ITD, Kootenai Health, and all the property owners, and whomever wants to participate in the traffic study to kind of determine if these mobility suggestions are the right way to go. We haven't validated this. This is from the planning standpoint that this seems the most logical way to create mobility enhancements for this district. That needs to be validated. There's, they talk about right-in, right-outs on Highway 95. We know there's some issues with that with ITD. We need to further analyze that. We need to really define where Ironwood needs to go, how it needs to look. So this is just a concept, and we're not looking to displace anybody at this time. We're not looking to do anything other than to validate the master plan as this moves forward.
Is it my turn? Mm-hmm. So on that word, displace, that was a common theme here tonight. And what I recall is the 2016 Silver Lake Mall was for the widening of Government Way, where there was a piece of their parking lot. That's why eminent domain had to be used there. Mm-hmm. Has Ignite, in your knowledge, ever considered, discussed, or talked about using any eminent domain powers within any of the projects that you have?
No.
So is there a plan to do that in any way in this project?
No.
But it's in your plan.
So
it's in the plan, but there's no plan to use it.
Okay, well,
it's a
they're
power.
Not laughing at me.
Pardon?
They're not laughing at me.
That's so. One of the conversations as I referred to earlier was about that conversation with Mary Souza. And her basic reply to me was that she felt eminent domain should only be in the control of elected officials. And that is what her point was about that. And my follow-up to that was that the legislature, the law gave Ignite that control. So if we took it out of the plan, which I think we discussed this, and said, let's take it out of the plan completely.
Correct.
And that's not off the table. That could happen tonight, correct?
Correct.
So strike that paragraph. We've decided now we want it taken out of your plan. It really is going to go along with what your intent is anyway, because you're not intending to use that. But the reality is we can't change the law, and
Correct.
the law gave it to your agency.
Correct.
And that's where I see that that rub. The one thing I don't know, and I don't know if anybody knows this, is if the law is changed, does an urban renewal plan become grandfathered in?
We don't know that. The legislature looked at eliminating eminent domain several years ago, and it did not get sufficient support to go anywhere. So they have looked at this issue in the past. This is not a new issue across the state. This has bubbled up in other communities across the state, and the legislators look at it, but they have not changed the law. They have not removed that authority from urban renewal agencies to have that if they ever decide to use it. So that is still part of the law.
So, so on that topic, which I think that is always concerning to me, and it makes me feel as a citizen, as a council member, as a business owner here, when people feel like I'm sitting here saying, I'm going to hang on to the right to take away your property. And I have listened for multiple years on this project, and that has never been a consideration. Does the law allow it regardless of what we say? Yes, but it's never been a consideration, and I feel badly that it gets people riled up, and their emotions end up being exploited over something that is never the intent that I've ever seen in any of the projects that our urban renewal agency has done, ever executed or even discussed. So I know what the law, and I'm making my decisions based on what is the reality, not what I suspect is going to happen, but I just felt I had to get that out for the fear's sake of some of the folks here.
Well, if I can give you a couple examples. Over the years, we've put together strategic portfolios to do projects in the downtown. So for the case in point is a parking garage. You know, at one time, we wanted to acquire the entire federal building block, excluding the old federal building. So, you know where the parking structure is now. We wanted to get the rest of that block and do a larger scale parking garage. So we pursued that over the years. We bought these properties. When they came on the market, we negotiated with people and we acquired property. There was one property that was right next to the current Olympia restaurant, just next to it, that we visited with the gentleman for years, seeing if he'd be willing to sell his property. And he wouldn't. He didn't want to sell. So we wait 6 months, we wait a year, we go back and say, have you changed your mind? Are you interested in selling? No, we haven't. I'm not going to sell. Fine. So what we ended up doing is we redesigned the parking garage project to just use the half a block north of the alley for the current parking garage. And then we sold off the other buildings that we bought below the alley and put them back on the tax rolls. So we had no intent of forcing him to sell. We would have been happy if he did. It might have been a better project, but he didn't, so you have what we have. The same issue is over here behind City Hall on Young Avenue. We acquired those properties now that we have gifted to the city, and for years we talked to the gentleman, the family on the corner there, if they wanted to sell. I can't remember their names, Mr. Anderson, maybe? And we chatted with them for years. They never wanted to sell. They never wanted to sell. They live in Spokane. They liked that property. Fine. We never pushed it. We always had the door open if they ever wanted to sell. They didn't, so you have the footprint you have now that you're working with the museum on.
You know, that story makes me think about sometimes the way I relate to your board. Your board changes over years. There's some kind of, it seems to me, and the way I always feel about this board is that we are a conservative, you know, very, don't mess with people, try not to take things ever. And I think about your board that way. They seem gentle. There's some old timers there from back in the day. And again, there's no one old timer left, and I guess I'm right behind him. But you know, we grew up, I grew up with these super conservative people on P&Z back in the 90s that, you know, we were gentle to our constituents. We tried to help people do things they wanted to do, and I feel like that's part of who we are, and hopefully it blends into the rest. But, you know, I've always thought that that's important. I think to Dixie Reed and Deanna Goodlander and the girls that just kind of kept thumping it, you know, you don't mess with the people. You don't take things from them. You try and give them things when you can, and you try and make efforts. And that always makes me feel good to be part of this up here. You know, I think it's an important part of our history in this town. I get the feeling from the folks here that they feel like we're trying to do something that isn't fair, isn't right. It feels like I'm trying to take something from you. And when we look at the pictures, and the picture looks pretty dirty, you know, it's kind of scraping things and building it. I get it that it's not a plan. I think back to the river, and there was a plan, and it changed over the years. It was drawn this way, and then they changed it once you had the roads in. This, I guess, has potential to be more than what we're looking at. I personally, I don't think that's a great picture. You know, I get it that it's got feel-good things and wide sidewalks and bike lanes and all that real important stuff. But there's churches, there's daycare, there's business people that I know, and I've always liked the area just because it's funky and it's got a forest. Oh, and yeah, I have to protect the senior center. They're yelling at me. What are you going to do with our senior center? No, you guys, we won't do anything. You know, just what I needed is another committee to be on. But again, I don't mean to ramble, but again, it's helped to know the history of urban renewal here. We've done good things, and this one that's going to end in another year, we hope we all want to be here for the end of that, because that money comes back into the city, and hopefully we give back some of it to our citizens and fix some things we need to fix, and hopefully things keep growing. I don't want to go on, but at one time I thought, why don't we just do like Post Falls does? Take the Shopko area and draw a circle around it, and why wouldn't that work? Or why is that something I'm missing on that?
So just to touch base on that, so one of the ideas we've heard was just to kind of form a urban renewal district without a revenue allocation area, just make it a district. And this has been done in the past, prior to 2016 in Lewiston and Twin Falls, where they made a district and then they would, for lack of a better term, have little pod areas where they would do projects and then form a revenue allocation area. That has changed in 2016 with the new law that if you do that type of strategy and you amend the plan, you reset the base values so that you lose all the tax increment that has been generated for these specific little RAAs, so that you couldn't fund debt obligations, you couldn't reimburse developers, you wouldn't have any money if you keep resetting the base. And that's been a change in the law that really has negated any type of value associated with that type of strategy.
Tony, let me ask you this. How big a deal would it be if they started all over on this project? New plans, everything like that?
Well, to date, we spent over $350,000 on this planning effort, so we could start again. This is, council's prerogative if you don't like where we're going or if you want to see something different, but I don't know what the value would be. I mean, we started from scratch. We had no vision. We brought the community together through visioning workshops, through charrettes, through stakeholder meetings, got a lot of public input, and this is what the public kind of envisioned this area to look like over the next 30 to 50 years. So we've kind of got the visioning from the community about what this part of the community should look like to kind of meet all the demands that we've talked about.
Is this what was taken to the Planning Commission and they approved it?
Yes.
Danny Boy.
Go ahead. All right. Well, I guess just for some perspective from my part of it, I think that there might be some perceptions that it's this is like a urban renewal, a total urban renewal or not urban renewal, whereas the reality is that urban renewal in the agency, could provide, would provide some of the funding mechanism, but at least as important is also coordination. There's a lot of moving parts. Somebody kind of has to help keep the thing going along, but it is never envisioned that it's going to be all urban renewal money or that Kootenai, Medical Center is going to own everything. It's meant to be kind of a joint, for sure, to be kind of a joint private partnership and with the community. And again, I think it never hurts to remind ourselves that, Kootenai Hospital, and I kind of refer to the old terminology, but there's not a lot of community hospitals out there. This isn't some big, medical corporation that's based somewhere else. This is our community hospital that grew up here and is servicing the needs of the community. And, I keep hearing, but put it out on the prairie, and if they built all the things out on the prairie that they'd like to send to the prairie, there wouldn't be much prairie left. But then for the people the population center, and again, I work with the seniors too, that is such a key location that again, somewhere back in the past, we're so fortunate that we got that location. And so I guess that's just some perspective from me.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, like John Ingalls said this morning in the morning paper, there was a few things that we never had here before. We had to go to Spokane, and now we have them here, and it just seems like that it took us a while to get those, and now we've got an opportunity to get more, and it just seems that we should take advantage of it.
I just want to add a little bit that, this is our community hospital, and I think we're all very privileged to have that in our community, not only for job creation and being one of our county's biggest employers, but also for the services it provides locally. I know on council, I think every one of us since I've been on council has unfortunately either had a procedure done there or a short little stay. So I said this before, while serving on council, it's a real asset to be able to get your healthcare needs met in your community and not have to go to Seattle or Spokane. I'm sure their services are spectacular, but to stay in your hometown with your family and your community surrounding you, to have quality healthcare services is critical to a thriving, growing city. So I just want to remind everybody of that. There's a lot of benefits with employment, but also the services they provide.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this isn't about Kootenai Health. And we're happy that Kootenai Health is here, and they did all this stuff so far without urban renewal. All this stuff has been done without urban renewal. Everything you guys said that you like about Kootenai Health has happened, and it's here, and it's now. It's not going away. It is a public hospital. It is a government monopoly, and it's striving to expand that monopoly by acquiring businesses around itself. And it's very politically incorrect for me to say that, but it's the truth. The question we have to say is, are we going to use the power of government to let it continue to expand the monopoly? Is urban renewal the best fit? So Kootenai Health aside, let's talk about this area. And this area sucks. And it's the city's fault, because as this area grew and it was developed, the city kind of said, yeah, go ahead, build that there, don't worry about the streets. We do that a lot. And I'm sure that when the first big office building came in there, they said, yeah, don't worry about Ironwood. And when the next one came in, we said, don't worry about Ironwood. Till we have the situation that we have now, where we have an area that is thriving. No one's going to disagree with that. And there's things the city could do to fix it. Is urban renewal the best tool for that job? This is the question I asked when this first came to us like 2 years ago. And the reply came back, well, no, there's other tools available, but it seems like the skids have been greased for urban renewal since day one. And I want to explain why it's not a good fit. Tony's right, there's two statutes. There's the blight statute and there's the economic development statute. This area is not blighted, so we can't use 20. We got to go to 29, which is economic development. You have the CEO of the hospital come up here and tell us that he's added thousands of jobs in the past year that pay an average of $60,000 a year. And they're growing, they're bursting at the seams, they're trying to expand. So is the area economically disadvantaged? No. Is tax increment financing the best way to fund this? There's other methods, bonds, levies, business improvement district. Tax increment financing, it works because you're going to put something in there that's going to generate more property taxes than what's there now. Riverstone, Atlas Mill site. This hospital pays no property taxes. Doesn't. All the property that it owns, quite substantial up there, doesn't pay any property taxes. By Tony Burns' own admission, this is a 20-year project maximum that needs 30 years worth of work. So it's an 8-foot ladder to reach a 30-foot roof. It's not going to work. Is the funding going to be there? No, it doesn't make enough money. He said that last meeting too. It doesn't generate enough money. So they have to get money from the city. We have to put money in there too, which is in there. It's an obligation to future councils. They have to get pilot payments from the hospital, payment in lieu of taxes, pilot, because the hospital doesn't pay any property taxes. So they're going to get money from them too. And even then, they're still not going to get enough money to do what needs to be done. Yet they push urban renewal. Despite all these facts, they push urban renewal. Why? And the only reason I can think of is eminent domain by an unelected board. They say they're not going to use it, but yet when I was talking about pulling it out of the plan, that isn't a plan, by the way, when I was talking about pulling it out of the plan, they balked. They balked. They said, no, you can't pull it out of the plan because we have it by statute anyway.
No.
The plan also has what I call the poison pill, which says that if the agency has any outstanding financial obligations, the city cannot modify the plan. But you see, the city is also entitled by statute to modify the plan. So that doesn't mean anything either. Why urban renewal? Why? What is it that's so necessary about urban renewal that you can't do with a bond or a levy? I asked the guy who gave the initial presentation to provide me with that information. Of course, he didn't because he knew that it would be urban renewal regardless. What is it about urban renewal that's so important when it fails on every single point? Why? That has never been answered. I would love to see something done up here. I would love to meet with our board and the hospital board and talk about how we can work together to make this area, to improve this area, without using the term obsolete buildings 5 times in a plan and not cite where those buildings are. Idaho statute requires that an urban renewal plan list a statement listing the kind, number, and location of all proposed public works within the revenue allocation area. This plan does not. It fails to meet Idaho code, which means it can be invalidated in court. So I would say on all those cylinders, this misses, but yet it's being pushed. And they compare it to other things that have been done that people agree with that were a good thing. I've said Riverstone was a good thing. I think doing urban renewal in Atlas makes sense for the same reasons. But this just doesn't fit. And I would implore my fellow councilmen to reject this plan and to start over and do something else. I believe this plan threatens small businesses. We've heard from small business owners here tonight who feel threatened. And I would like to think this council supports small businesses. This plan does not. And the reason it doesn't is because it's a bad fit and the plan is vague. We want to be transparent and honest with the public and pass something that will be supported. At the first meeting when they discussed urban renewal and they listed it as an option, they said that it was a political hot potato. It is. And I hope council appreciates that when you make your decision tonight. Thank you.
Tony? Is there any response to some of that?
Pardon?
Some response to some of
Actually,
Dan's?
I would prefer if council would debate and not keep bringing in a staff member. I know you're not a staff member of us, but do you want him and I to argue, or do you want us to talk about it as the citizens' representatives?
We just listened to you go the other way, and unless somebody here, I want to hear from the guy who runs the organization.
I think the people want to hear from their elected officials and not be and not be swayed. Someone who's paid to push urban renewal in the state. And I tell you, when the legislature was going to repeal and remove the power of eminent domain from urban renewal agencies, LCDC Ignite was sending their lobbyists to Boise to fight it. So why do you want to hear from him? I want to hear from you. And I don't want you to be influenced by this guy. You're the ones who go for election. He doesn't. He has a job forever.
Dan, can I ask a clarifying question?
I'm done ranting.
Dan, you mentioned that at the last council meeting when we were talking that we balked, or Tony balked, at removing eminent domain.
Yeah.
That's not how I recollect the meeting.
Okay.
And so I would let's talk about that as a council,
All
if
right.
we may. I remember Ms. Quaid saying, sure, we can remove it, but the tool is still in our tool belt because it's state-driven, right? Just as we discussed earlier. And I think we all agreed on the suggestion to let our wishes be known moving forward, that we do not want to exercise the power to use eminent domain. How is that balking at your suggestion?
Well, I believe if they really don't want to use urban renewal, confuse
Eminent
urban
domain.
renewal and eminent domain. Why? I don't know. But if they didn't want to use eminent domain, they wouldn't have put it in the plan, and they would have no problem with taking it out. I think it's true, they've never used it before, but it is something that I think, and I said this last meeting, would make the public feel more comfortable if it was out of the plan, even if they can still do it, if it's out of the plan. So when they did that, that's when Danielle Quaid mentioned that it is allowed by statute. I just thought it would be more reassuring for the public if we could pull it out of the plan, and then maybe some people could relax and say, okay, now I know they're going to do what they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're just going to, if they need to buy property, they'll just buy the property like they have in the past. With it in there, I think it makes people nervous.
And maybe I'm mishearing this, but I thought their attorney said, well, then we're just kind of duping people if we're telling them publicly that we're taking it out of the plan, but I know that it's still a tool.
That was my position and still is.
I believe that's what their counsel said in our discussion, was that if we pull it out, we're just making them feel assured when we need to state what our facts and what the law is, so.
I don't understand how that makes people nervous.
Oh, I do. They're here.
Yeah.
So I can get that they're nervous. It makes me nervous.
I understand their nervousness, for sure. I mean, nobody's disagreeing with that, but the intention I felt from Ms. Quaid and Tony was to be transparent. It's a tool. Let's list it as a tool. Again, to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
Not balking at it. So I just wanted to have that discussion. So
appreciate it. Thank you.
And I again would say, put some of the energy into, the legislature likes to, tinker with the urban renewal stuff. Okay, let's tinker with that. Let's just take the possibility out. This thing is, even if it goes through, it's a long time process, and in the next legislative session, they could remove that anxiety from all of us, so.
Well, and I think we just heard that they brought that up, and every time they bring it up, it's shot down. So this just becomes a moot debate for us. We have no control in that arena, and we don't want to be not transparent about what we're talking about here.
Can't we, our own urban renewal agency, can't we put that in there? Can't we say, Mike, can't we say that? Can't we say that eminent domain is not included in our urban renewal agency anymore? We don't need to go to the state, but the hell with the state.
But he said.
Well, the Urban Renewal Agency is a separate corporate entity from the city, and so although you guys appoint and approve the board members, I think state law gives that separate entity the power to do that. So, again, as you've, I think, expressed last meeting, you don't support using eminent domain, but I don't think we would have the power to eliminate that, modify a state law like that.
Well, I'm not gonna be here that long. Maybe I should fight with the state.
There you go. I have a few more things.
Anything else?
Just a couple things, and I just want to clear these up. Some things that ran through my mind were, when listening to what John Ness said, and I've talked to Tony and other people about this, and then I think of our realtor, lovely friend from the Deep South, who came here, and she was really upset over, you know, her church being taken away. And I look at what's going on here and what's going to happen in the next 25 years, and her church could be taken away if the owner of the property sells it. That's really what could happen to any of these properties. And in my mind, if I'm saying, if I vote no for this, that's not gonna keep her from losing sleep at night, if that's what is really a concern. When I feel like there isn't, this is gonna grow. It's not gonna stop the developers from developing if this is voted no. It's not gonna stop the hospital from growing. It's not gonna stop the new people who wanna move in there and get these good jobs, who are 77% female and have kids, who probably want daycares close by to where they work and probably are going to encourage their employer to build more daycares. I don't think that's not going to stop that. I have to look, and I don't want to have Medicine Man Pharmacy, who started their opening statement saying they built these roads wrong. They got it wrong. That's why we have this traffic problem. And now we're looking at a chance to get the community involved, which we did, to get infrastructure support involved, which is available, and build the roads the right way. Do a traffic study so that in the next 20 years, his employees that are still there aren't in the same pickle he's in with traffic. So I look at some of these positives and say, they came to us because the Urban Renewal Agency spent a huge amount of time. And I think Mr. Regan said, we're not smarter than this group of people, and I wouldn't ever propose that. That's why we hire consultants who do this for a career and for a living, and take a look at it and don't have a dog in the fight. And they give us some sound reasoning to say, this is what you should look at. This is what the neighborhood has come to these meetings and said, this is what we want. The people who've showed up for the last year, this is what they want. And for me to say, well, this group of people, applauding as they will or not, should deter all of that work, I don't know that that's a fair and reasonable decision either. I think some of the quotes that were brought up were from the developer, the consultant, who said, we have no estimate of these costs because we don't want to pin this down to the point where we can't negotiate with a property owner to do something better than what was first envisioned. And I get that that's very fluid and not a solid plan. But this is the largest employer we have, and that's part of what the city's obligation is to build partnerships that make that a successful thing. So I have a really hard time with getting hung up on one or two things and getting derailed on a couple of things that I feel have probably been a fear factor and a concern every time an urban renewal agency discussion has come up. So what I'd like to do, though, is talk about one thing that we were asked to do.
Can I bring up something before you do that?
Is put it on hold for 2 weeks. Is it a possibility?
Yes. But you did mention that whatever we do here, you vote no, it's not going to stop it from growing. And I thank you for saying that, because that proves what I said, which is you don't need urban renewal money in here to make it grow, because nothing we do can stop it from growing. So again, it's a bad use of urban renewal. What urban renewal does, though, is it allows government to pick the winners and losers. It's crony capitalism,
well, what
and
I
that's
think
why
I
I
said
oppose
is
it.
it won't stop Kootenai Health from growing. Whether they decide to grow on this campus or grow somewhere else, that's not going to stop them. It's not going to stop the developers inside this campus from building new buildings.
And that's great.
And so that's where I'm going. If the people who say, well, I don't want my church to be torn down, the property owner can sell that church and it will be torn down. The property owners have already said they did that.
You can still sell. So what would be, if we put it off for 2 weeks, which we can do, what would be your reason for doing that? What will we gain by adding 2 weeks?
The only thing was to get some clarification on some of the details of the plan that have been brought up tonight that may benefit some concerns.
Like, just specifically, because I mean, if we're going to make that direction, they're going to want to know which details.
Clarifying the section, chapter 29. Is it 29 that we're operating under? So clarifying that for the public, clarifying the vision versus the actual plan locations, next steps that are there.
What would you like to see?
And I had 2 others.
Well, before we do that, I would like to hear from the Urban Renewal Agency to see if postponing it for 2 weeks would affect them.
Well, you just kind of trashed him pretty good about his role and stuff, and you're going to believe now what he has to say?
No, because I mean, this affects them. I mean, I didn't want him to participate in a council debate, but I do, if we have a question regarding a delay.
Okay. A question.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Council members, we could delay the adoption of the plan for any amount of time that you see fit. If we delay it past the next meeting, it will not allow us to set the base value with the current values of 2019. So if we go into next year, we'll be using the 2020 values, which is, not fatal either. But we can certainly delay 2 weeks and try to address some of the concerns and adopt at that meeting, and still it'll be a rush to get it done because everything has to be published, recorded, distributed to all the taxing entities, et cetera, by year end, but it's doable. We did that last year, if you all remember, with 3 districts, so it's possible. I agree with Councilmember Gookin that we'll need some specificity around what you want us to clarify. Because if we're going to make changes to the plan, we would need to distribute those to the taxing entities prior to your next meeting, so that you would adopt a plan that had been provided to all of the relevant taxing entities. So we would need, that process would have to be iterative over the next couple of weeks to bring you back something that addressed your concerns and also be able to provide the notice as required by the statute.
So Dan, addressing the concerns, so we're talking about taking a pen and stripping things out. That's what I'm thinking, right?
We have the ability to do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the plan. She's talking about tax increments and 2 other taxing entities. We're not talking about that. We're talking about taking this plan and chopping out, take the buildings, the obsolete buildings, that's out. The eminent domain, that's out.
Well, whatever we did, we'd probably have to, in fairness to them, we'd probably have to get it done tonight.
Council members, we have an obligation to provide the plan that's being presented to the council to the other taxing entities. So that's what I mean. So if you propose changes to the plan, we would need to be able to have time to distribute those to the other taxing entities so that if they had input, they could provide that to you at the next meeting. So that's what I mean by you can make changes to the plan, but we just have to have a time to give notice before you actually adopt the ordinance and the plan.
And those taxing entities are?
Like Kootenai County, any overlapping highway districts, North Idaho College, Kootenai Health is actually one, even though they don't tax currently, they would be impacted if they did, the school district.
Well, urban renewal doesn't impact school districts, right?
We still statutorily have to provide them notice. There are some of their levies that are impacted by urban renewal. I believe it's just the emergency levy at this point. Very limited, but they're still required to receive notice.
So since you mentioned that, why doesn't Kootenai Health tax? That's not a question for you.
No, that's not a question for me.
they do well with the money they have, let's put it that way.
So, what do you guys want to do? Some options here if you want to kick it down the road and spend the night chopping it up, or kick it down the road, call a special meeting and chop it up.
Probably be better to, if you wanted to call a special meeting, because I think I'm probably the only one up here who has a copy of the plan. I mean, if you're gonna.
I think we all have a copy of the plan.
No, I mean on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in our system.
Okay, that's good.
The whole thing is in there, so.
Well, any other discussion now is fun.
Oh, I love it.
Do we want to make a motion to fulfill this or change it, or? We all look like we're pondering.
I am pondering. I'm pondering a motion that has to have some specificity to it in order to call another. If we had a special meeting, what would the special meeting look like? Can anyone tell us that?
Well, no, because we would be setting whatever agenda or whatever we want. I mean, we would invite Ignite, of course, and Kootenai Health, and interested parties, the public, and but we have to set some kind of an agenda.
Well, Troy, any perspective on this? I'm just asking.
Well, our goal has been to get this in front of you to take advantage of the decision before the year end. So that's why we're here. We've done a second reading. We haven't done that in quite a while. As you now understand, we have to get that information out there. So if there was some modifications, as Danielle has referenced, the sooner the better. So from a staff perspective, is it worth taking eminent domain out of it? It doesn't appear to be your recommendation. You fully understand, as the public does, that is in statute. You cannot change the state statute, but it is your intention. So from this administrator's desk, my recommendation to you would be to do what you have told your constituents, the people that I work for, and have it removed from the plan.
If I may, Councilmember McEvers, I was just kind of talking to Tony quietly about what the issues that you brought up in terms of wanting some more information, and the one on clarifying the qualification under Chapter 29. I guess I would like to direct the council and the public to the original study that determined that it was eligible for urban renewal. We could certainly provide that to you again, and we could make that available on the website if people wanted to review it, but it does meet almost all of the qualifications for creating an urban renewal district. That's not something you're going to find in the plan, but that was an initial determination that was made by the council when you adopted it. So there's a lot of specificity in there about the qualifications under the statutory definition of deteriorated and deteriorating. So maybe that would be helpful on that front, but that's not something that's going to require a modification to the plan, I don't believe. In terms of clarifying the vision and the plan locations, I think that Tony has provided quite a bit of discussion about that, but we could certainly do that more. Obviously, we know that this vision is not going to come to fruition like this, and that it's going to be a process over time of working with property owners and developers and trying to make the best decision on the ground based on the empowerment that we have in the plan. So I don't think anybody who happens to see something they don't like going through their property should feel concerned at this date that this is set in stone, because it absolutely can't be, right? Because we don't own these properties. We don't have a developer that wants to develop something on them. They're not even configured this way from a legal perspective right now. But we could certainly address any concerns that way, in a discussion. Again, I don't know that that's going to change the plan. Like I said a couple weeks ago, we could certainly remove the eminent domain from the plan. I didn't feel like I balked at that. I feel like that's a legitimate request if the council wants to express your intent that way, and we could certainly do that. I do agree that it doesn't change our legal ability to utilize eminent domain to the extent the board determines to do that at some future date. But we could certainly do that as an expression of your intent in addition to the resolution or the motion that was adopted 2 weeks ago. But I'm not really seeing things, I guess, that would require a modification to the plan, just more information to be provided to you and to the public. And we can certainly do that in a workshop format, or we can do it at the next meeting. We can make it available to the public as well. It already is available. It has been available as part of your packets in the past, but I guess I just wanted to provide that insight in terms of, I don't think we're looking at large modifications to the plan unless I'm missing something.
I would say let's just rip off the Band-Aid and do it.
Well, I got the impression that whatever we did, you're not going to support urban renewal.
Nope.
So are we bending over for you?
I hope
not. Are we bending over for them? You know, I guess that's the question. Are we going to make you feel more comfortable if we take out eminent domain and the raggedy buildings get taken? Is that going to make you feel better? Because that's what we feel, that we would never do that. What commitment can we make to say we're being truthful, we're looking out for you while we're here? If you don't believe that, if you don't trust that, then, you know, we do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, I think what they're saying is just, and this is my thing, is I would be in favor, if, say, the council rejects this plan, I think our next move should be to get together with Kootenai Health and discuss what we can do together to enact some changes in the area without using urban renewal. Because I don't think there's... I don't think there's anyone who disagrees that it's perfect. I mean, anyone who agrees that it's perfect. People know that it needs work. I just think that this is the wrong tool, and it raises too many questions. You know, we can't modify the plan because it's vague, and they made it vague so that they could be flexible. And Tony explained that. I think people understand what he's saying, but I don't think it raises the bar to what the public wants to see with regards to what happens here. And we can say no, but that doesn't mean we stop. I mean, it means we do whatever's next.
Dan?
Is there a big, I mean, you've said we could do a couple of weeks, but again, I'm not sure exactly, you know, here we are literally coming up on holidays, and for the public's sake and all of that, you know, is something really going to happen in the next 2 weeks? Therefore, I mean, kind of like, well, we're looking at a very big decision that's going to impact for a long time. Let's say if it was something as long as, you know, maybe 2 months to step back. What significance does the timing have? Is it just that we would lose, you know, funding for a year, or how is it related to how much time we take right now?
Well, it would impact when the base value is set, 2019 versus 2020, and then we're always subject to the whim of the legislature with regard to law changes on this this area of the law. You know, we've seen those over time, lots of modifications. So potentially the law could change in a way that would adversely impact the creation of the district.
Can we go ahead with the plan and just eliminate eminent domain?
Good. Do you have a question? Go ahead, sorry.
My question may be for Renata, but maybe for you, Wood. So to move forward, if we were to choose to adopt Council Bill 17-1004, our first step would be to dispense with the rules. You would then read the Council Bill once by title only. We'd have a roll call vote, discussion, then roll call vote. And then we'd make another motion to adopt Council Bill. But is that where we would strike eminent domain, if we wanted to strike that, or is that just a completely separate motion?
I think that has to be a completely separate motion so that Danielle can make that change in the plan and distribute it to the taxing entities again, correct?
I think that we could do that on a supplemental basis. So if you choose to move forward with the ordinance tonight, which adopts the plan, I think we could then, when we send out the notice to the taxing entities, we could say we're taking out eminent domain. I don't think that doesn't impact the taxing entities from a, impact on their tax status. I think we could do that after the fact.
And please note that ordinance number is incorrect in the second motion. It should be 19-1018. I apologize for that typo.
So I'm going to make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 19-1018 once by title only.
Second. We're dispensing with the rule.
Been moved and seconded to dispense with the rule. Discussion.
And this is a procedural. This is not a vote on it. This is just to prevent Renata from reading 18 pages of code.
Okay, would you read the motion?
The motion is to dispense with the rule of reading council bill only once, rather than the 3 times required by law.
By title only.
By title only, thank you.
So I have a first, no discussion. You want to do your thing? Read by title?
Your thing.
Okay. Council Bill number 19-1018, an ordinance of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, approving the urban renewal plan for the Health Corridor Urban Renewal Project, which plan includes revenue allocation financing provisions, authorizing the city clerk to transmit a copy of this ordinance and all other required information to county and state officials and other taxing entities, providing severability, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for the publication of ordinance of summary thereof, and providing an effective date.
So roll call?
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Kuchen?
Yeah.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Now is the thing.
Okay, next, motion to adopt Council Bill 171004 with adjustments, or do we make the adjustments first?
Well, one point of clarification, the council bill is listed incorrectly there, so it's 19-1018.
Okay. So what are we at?
Can I have Ness come up and answer the question now or not?
More discussion on that?
Did
Oh,
you
you're
make the
gonna
motion? I'll
Okay.
make a motion to adopt Council Bill 19-1018.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt Council Bill 191018.
So, and
Discussion.
Mr. President, you know how I'm going to vote. I do want to remind council that when this was first presented to us 2 years ago, it was mentioned that this is a political issue. And one of the things that we don't deal with very well at this level of government is politics. So I just want to brace everyone for the consequences of their decision.
What does that mean?
But you're the master. What?
That means that question just proved my point. We don't deal with political things here. So when we kind of go verklempt, it means that we have stepped into the arena of politics. Most of the stuff we deal with is streets and parks and police and fire. It's real basic stuff. You know, approving, buying a dump truck like we did earlier tonight. And it's just, and we can have some good questions, and we do. You guys ask some great questions, and I appreciate that. But when you deal with this, you're dealing with politics, and it becomes a realm that affects us in ways that most council people just don't understand. So I just wanted to make sure you're ready for that.
I disagree. I look at what urban renewal has done in this city and a lot of the great things that people enjoy. Of all things, how about art? I'm just learning about art, and then art's all sideways, but that comes out of urban renewal. It's all part of it. So I stand up for our urban renewal. You can understand that. You can appreciate it not working. You see it as something, you've never been supportive of urban renewal.
Not true.
I think we went through the blogs out here. That was urban renewal money that did this park out here, so I'm with you. But politics, I don't think so. Any other discussion?
I was just going to ask
Go ahead.
Ness the question. If I could, is John Ness still here, or did he leave? Can I put you on the spot one last time, if you'd indulge me? The big question keeps coming up and recurring in my notes is, why urban renewal? Why did Kootenai Health go through the motions of every option and then want to partner in an urban renewal project?
So just a little bit of context. You know, this project has been named the Health Corridor, but let's go back to all the properties that are in this area. It's not just the hospital. There are hotels, restaurants, grocery stores, private physician practices. Kootenai Health is a bigger property owner, but there are multiple property owners. Many of those property owners are really struggling with, number one, what are we going to do with Ironwood Drive? It's a public safety issue. We're a healthcare organization, and literally there are times during the day you cannot turn left. We've got 3,600 employees, and we're responsible for them. We need to work with the Urban Renewal Agency and the city to address some of these public infrastructure issues, which then starts to enable future growth. Kootenai Health has eminent domain authority, and like Ignite, we have never used it. We have no plans to use it. That was never the intention. So this idea came up in part because of, frankly, frustration with the inability to resolve significant transportation and traffic issues. And so we looked at that, and then we started to look at it on a broader basis and said, since 2011, Kootenai Health has grown by 110%. The community is growing at a significant rate. What happens if in the next 10 years, Kootenai Health doubles in size again? Our projections are, based on population, that is absolutely going to occur. We can't grow. We can't grow to the north because of the interstate. We can't grow to the east because of US 95. There's no property available to purchase to the west, and so we're landlocked. And this is a community hospital, and by the way, just a reminder, how many independent standalone hospitals of our size are left in the United States? 32. That's it. And we don't have the resources, in spite of perceptions, to do all this ourselves. So we need to partner. We'd like to partner with the city, Urban Renewal Agency, other businesses to try to create an opportunity to resolve some of these issues. Because I think what's going to happen here, what we see is the population is going to continue to grow. Many of the people that are moving here are of the age where they need healthcare services. So we believe that Kootenai Health, it's not just Kootenai Health, all of the healthcare industry is going to continue to grow at a significant rate. And so how are we going to partner to grow and accommodate all that? The other option that we've actually talked about is we're not going to be able to grow, we don't grow in Coeur d'Alene. But here's the problem. We love our location. I've been working in healthcare for 35 years. If somebody told me there was a hospital located at the intersection of the interstate highway and the US 95, that is absolutely the perfect location for a regional hospital. We love that location, but we need some help. And so we started having discussions, and we thought that urban renewal was the most positive, productive way to partner with the city, with the Idaho Department of Transportation, which is really key to this, really key, because that US 95 Ironwood Drive connection is going to be a real issue we're going to have to resolve, and we're going to need their help. And so we thought it was a really, really positive way to go about this.
John, I have a question for you, if I could. So these 35 independent hospitals that are left in the country.
32.
32, and you're one of them.
Yes.
What's the other option? What happens if you don't go away?
So the reason there's only 32 left is the other ones can't make it and they've been sold.
You can sell hospitals?
Oh, yeah. Happens every day.
Who buys a hospital?
Big corporations from out of state.
I should know that.
Happens all the time. It is, it's uncommon for a community our size to have a hospital our size, and it's really uncommon to have it be community owned. And we are so proud of that. And we love our location. So how do we, frankly, all get together and start working on this? Because I hate to break the news to everybody, but there are more people moving to this community. It's going to keep coming. And when seniors look at our community and they look at the amenities here, what else are they looking for? Health care.
I have a cane.
That's it.
And I apologize to everyone. I've tried to not be cranky. I just went through foot surgery, so I was under the desk putting ice on my foot, and I should have clarified that earlier.
So, there's been a lot of just very important comments, all the concerns. I respect that. But we're trying to create a conversation in the community about how we can all work together to create an environment to enable future growth, which is going to happen.
Well, I have one other question for you. So let's say this goes forward and you pick up Costco or Shopko. Does that come off the tax rolls?
Well, first of all, that building is
big.
Obsolete?
Well, large, big box stores like that and retailers are struggling in the United States because of changes in the industry. We looked at it and we made a conservative financial decision that we don't need a 100,000 square foot big box store building. So we're not pursuing it.
But theoretically, if you bought or expanded to any building in the area, it's not on the tax rolls.
Yeah. Well, let's clarify. Kootenai Health, we own the hospital property, and by virtue of state statutes, there's no property taxes paid through that. When we lease facilities, all of our physician clinics are off-site locations. We lease them. We pay property taxes through the lease agreement. The fastest growing part of Kootenai Health is actually not the hospital. It's our physician practices. And our physician practices are in lease space which pay property taxes. So it's not just yes or no. It's more complicated than that.
And if a private, out-of-state, huge mega medical corporation bought the hospital, they would pay property taxes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the only way Kootenai Health Hospital, this is an important fact, the only way this hospital would ever be sold, this is an interesting, important fact. In the state of Idaho, as a hospital district, the county commissioners would put it on the ballot for a community vote. Why am I encouraged and believe that we continue to be community owned? Because I believe that many of the people in the community are proud of the fact that they own the hospital.
And if you sold the hospital, who gets the money?
So if it's, you guys have a lot of questions tonight. So if...
Aren't you glad you stayed till the end?
That's all right. We're good. So if the hospital, this is theoretical.
Right.
Okay. If the hospital was sold to a for-profit company, happens all the time, that company would then put those funds in a community foundation to be spent for health and wellness reasons. That is how in Spokane, originally the old Empire Health System was sold to community health systems. They bought those hospitals and then they put that money aside in a foundation, which still exists today. But our hospital is not for sale.
Oh, no, yeah. I didn't see a sign out front, so,
yeah.
So,
little real estate sign.
So,
and I just want to connect these dots because I want to make sure I heard you say this. Your hospital as a taxing district has the power of eminent domain, which you've never used.
Right.
And you have a publicly elected board.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure those two things were.
And we have taxing authority, but have not used it since 1995. And there are several urban myths about this.
Do clear them up.
Okay. Our board has no interest in using its taxing authority. We feel that healthcare in the United States already costs too much. Why would we further burden the very community that created the hospital by also taxing them? So every year we pass a resolution to not use our taxing authority. If, however, the hospital decided to use its taxing authority, what happens is you have to go back to the last year that you actually used your taxing authority to set the base. And the last time Kootenai Health taxed the community, they received $450,000 in taxes. So you almost have to start over. And there is no such thing as foregone taxes. That's another urban myth. So the taxing thing is not going to happen. It wouldn't be worth it.
John, let me go down this road real while we got you in the hot spot. So the folks that live out in the county that are complaining about they're going to be affected by this if urban renewal goes by, how are they affected right now by the hospital? The hospital's in the city.
Yeah.
It's supported by city infrastructure, all that stuff. How is it their community hospital also? It feels like it's all on us. Am I seeing that differently?
Well, about a third of all of our patients come from outside of Kootenai County because sadly in those rural communities they lack services. The people that live in those communities don't have cardiologists and vascular surgeons and nephrologists, and so they come here. And frankly, they count on us. Kootenai Health is a designated trauma center. Now, we support that, and we have many, many relationships out in the region, and so we see more and more patients from all of North Idaho. Kootenai Health is no longer just a local hospital. It is a regional medical center, and we see patients every day all the way from the Canadian border down to Grangeville. And just amongst us, we see patients from western Montana. We are now seeing patients from Spokane.
Anybody got anything good for John?
Let's vote before we lose Ron.
John, you're good? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
that.
What?
I think we're voting.
Just.
We're voting.
We're going to vote, Ron. Let's hang on just a second for the vote, and then I'll join you.
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. So we are moving forward as it is, and if we want to make any changes, this is not the time.
Got to wait 20 years for that.
Ames?
Mike, I'm not sure what Danelle wanted for a motion on removing eminent domain. Should that be made at this time or after the?
It's too late for that.
Hi, Mike.
It is late, I will give you that. But I don't know it's too late. You've read, had the first reading of the title of the ordinance. If now you said we want to strike that eminent domain from that. You're not adding anything, you're striking something, so I think you can go forward with that.
But the motion has been made to pass it as is, so it would have to be a modifying motion at this point, right?
I'm sorry, was that the motion to pass it as is, or was, you read the title?
They did, there's a motion on the floor to adopt the council bill. So they could amend that motion to add and remove eminent domain from the plan if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So you can make a motion
Was
to
the impression
amend
I
that.
got you wanted to do, and she said, well, wait till you're done, no?
I'm happy to do that if that's council's pleasure. Okay, so I will amend my motion to say, to adopt Council Bill 19-1018 and remove eminent domain from the plan. Is that adequate enough? Okay.
And
My
the
second agrees.
was Kiki? You?
Stan.
Yeah.
English was the second.
All I wanted to clarify is, didn't we do this last time?
No, it was just a resolution.
It was just a recommendation. We didn't put it in the motion.
Right.
So I'm not going to bring up my pay attention to affordable. No, nobody's going to pay attention to me anymore. Okay, I got it.
I like it.
So the second supported this? Good. So, roll call?
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move for a
Thanks, everyone.
5-minute recess.
5-minute recess.
We're back in session now, and we're on item number 6, resolution 19-062, the approval of the purchase of the Don Caden statue, Open Arms, in the amount of $7,100. We have the staff report by Troy Tymason. Take it away, Troy.
Thank you, Mayor. I come before you as the liaison to the Arts Commission to bring forward the piece of art that you see on the screen. It was originally untitled and recently renamed to Open Arms. The artist, as you mentioned, Donald Caden, S.J., for the price of $7,100. In June of 2015, the Coeur d'Alene Arts Commission issued a call to artists for the 2015-2016 fiscal year Art Currents program. One of the pieces selected was this one by the artist. He has passed away. He's Father Caden, who died in 2018. He's a Jesuit priest who lived and worked at Gonzaga. He owned a studio up in the Garwood area. His artworks are primarily done and held in the private collections in the Northwest. Val Coons, who's a close family friend and a state representative, has been working with the father's nephew, who has inherited the artwork. We have negotiated with the estate, and he has reduced the price. Originally, the statue was on the market for $13,000. The Arts Current program, as you well understand, is not art that is owned by the city. It is on loan to the city, and in the event that it sells, the Arts Commission would receive 25% of the sales price. So if that would have occurred while it was in the Arts Current program, the commission would have received that 25%. So the Arts Commission has acquired art with that reduction. If that was the case, the piece would be $9,750, and as you can tell, that dollar amount has been reduced. This is not out on the street right now. We've taken it in on city property as it came out of the Arts Current program. So dollars from this are dedicated in the arts funds. We're proposing that this would come from dollars that came from Ignite in their Lake District. Thus, the art piece would go into the Lake District. One suggestion that's come up by staff and members of the Arts Commission would be to put this in the new green belt at your Atlas Waterfront project. So as we will be doing into perpetuity, we will be coming to you for art piece acquisitions. This is a recommendation from your Arts Commission. I would stand for any questions you may have. The dollars are appropriated in their budget at this time. You are approving or unapproving the acquisition of this into the city's arts collection.
Questions for Troy. Woody.
So, have we done this before?
Yes.
Are we going to do this again?
Buy art current pieces?
Buying current pieces
art
that
current pieces
don't sell.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Does that mean we kind of get stuck with leftovers? I mean, one way to look at it?
I would say no, based on your arts commissioners and the way they look at it. We are looking for good pieces that can be added to the city's collection. This is an original art piece. It's done by a local artist, which ties into many of the attributes that you have charged that commission to deliver upon.
Okay, thanks.
Questions for Troy. Dan.
Thanks. And I don't know if you can answer. I don't know if anyone can answer this one. How do you price art? Norman, who spoke earlier, asked me this question, and I, even being in the arts, community, I have no idea how you price a piece of art.
That's a great question. I'm sure you could spend lots of money on an appraisal. However, that's an original piece, so what do you compare it to? And what's it worth to the buyer of the art?
Yeah. So it's an interesting puzzle. I guess, we'd need someone like Terry Lee here to say, how they actually price art. I assume there's a profit in there, but they lowered the price of this because it's his estate, right? He's passed.
Correct.
So this is kind of like they're donating a portion of the cost to us.
And they wanted it to be here, council member, yes. Yeah. He was here, he went to Gonzaga for many, many decades and taught there was a priest and came from the Garwood area. So the story will add to this if we add it to the collection to talk about this artist.
I think it's a great story, too. Now, can anyone on council look at this in any angle and see anything that will tick anyone off?
Was there a summary as to what, I know that he didn't title his piece as I read that, but was there a summary description as to what the piece was about?
A very interesting artist. He did not like to name his pieces because he wanted the recipients looking at it to form their own opinion of what they see.
God, is that an artist or what?
That's clean.
Yeah.
I could find something, but I'm not going to. I could find a reason somebody could be offended.
I think it's cool. This is going to go in the new Atlas Park. Am I correct with that?
That is our recommendation.
So this will be like the first piece of artwork to go in there, and how do we have an idea like how big it is? It looks like about 8 feet, maybe. It's kind of hard to tell because it's a wide-angle lens.
Councilmember Evans, let's see. It's a tall piece of art, so it's probably in that 7-foot neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're close, but I don't know exact.
And I think I'm a fan of public art, and it would be nice we put in a park and we have some art. It's me.
Any other questions for Troy?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of Resolution 19062, approval of purchase of Don Caden statue open arms in the amount of $7,100.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Eddinger.
Yeah.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried. Our final item for tonight, resolution number 19-063, approving the City of Coeur d'Alene Employee Benefits Trust Irrevocable Trust Agreement. We've done a lot of work on this in the past, and this is the final step that we need to take. So take it away again, Troy.
Thank you. Yes, Council, we are coming to you nearing the completion, and I'd like to give Greg Helbling from the Murray Group and his team an immense amount of credit for helping through this particular process. So as you understand, the City of Coeur d'Alene is looking to move to an employee benefit trust whereby we self-fund it. We also have insurance protection that we go out and acquire. So we are not the only one in a liable situation for our ongoing medical expenses. We brought this idea to you early last year. In March of 2019, you took the first major step, which was to fund an actuarial study, and that has been completed. We are working very, very closely with the Department of Insurance to tick off all of the boxes that they have to get us through that, and we are nearing completion of all those being successfully completed. And one of the big ones now is to fund the trust. So we have worked with Milliman, which is our actuarial folks, and we have broken it down, and the Department of Insurance is comfortable that if we fund prior to December 16th of this year a $600,000 from your fund balance, and then we do a second deposit in the first week of January 2020 for $800,000, for a total of $1.4 million. That will be the foundation of the trust from which to pay claims. Every month, the city will be putting in what we would normally have called premium, but it's the funding that will go in to cover the costs. Our goal is to save money over time. I'll use the analogy that the only thing I know about the future when looking into a crystal ball is that you'll get glass in your eye. But our goal is to look backwards and share with you that over the last 5 or 6 years, this city would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in premium if we would have been self-funded. So that's the best indicator that we have, that we've shown you, that going forward, this will be a way in which to contain the medical insurance cost, provide a great benefit for the employees of the City of Coeur d'Alene, and keep possibly less money going towards this benefit as we stay healthy, do the right things, and not pass the money on to a fully insured medical insurance plan. So again, I have the opportunity to bring this forward. We have a group that is going to be the trustees. I am not allowed to be one, so we have tap the shoulders of Randy Adams from the legal department, Vonnie Jensen from the finance department, Melissa Tosi, HR, Bill Dodd from fire, and Brady Reed from the police department, doing our very best to cover the different bargaining groups that exist in the city. So the biggest point for you is if you have any questions, we have Greg here as well. We're looking to fund this thing and get approval from the Department of Insurance and start it out as we told you we would January 1st, 2020. That would be my report, Mr. Mayor.
Troy, just a quick question on the investments. In Article 10, it lists the investments of the trust fund, of what the trust fund can be invested in. Is there any history, and maybe Greg can help with, on just an average return of what that's been looking at? Is that 1%, 2%, 3%? I know it's not high, but it is invested, and there's money that's earnings on that balance that goes back into the fund, correct?
It goes into the trust. So we will be looking for those ultra-conservative investments that are allowed by state statute. So I would say the 2% neighborhood would be where we should be at with the market the way it is right now.
So the money that's sitting in this trust fund will grow at the same rate that if it was sitting in our general fund. Right?
That is our goal, because we're very conservatively invested on city deposits as well.
Right. Okay. Woody.
So I'm feeling this story. We used to be self-insured on our insurance for certain reasons, and then we went to the other side. It seems like you've thought this through. Does that history have any bearing here? Because this is a major change for us, right?
Yes, this is a very significant change. You're correct. Our challenge when we had a self-insured plan, which was a self-funded plan, was we also offered a fully insured plan. So we actually split our group of employees. And as you would have medical experiences or costs, you would tend to move over to the group plan, which was what it was back in those days. So all of a sudden, we had very few people that were in the self-funded area, and we were not doing the actuarial underwriting because our group kept shrinking. And so in the business of insurance, typically the bigger the group, the better actuarially you'll be able to estimate costs. So we were shrinking the group, having those that were using the plan moving over, and so it basically imploded because we offered up two plans.
And that's how we ended up here.
Then we went fully insured, and now what you're watching is, the Affordable Care Act is probably 3.5% of our premium that we pay, that with a self-funded trust, we will not have to pay any of that. So we have a savings right out of the get-go, and we can look back on history on what our claims have been, what the premium we paid, and know that there's more premium paid than there's claims paid out. And that's the savings we would love to recoup going forward.
I seem to remember you worked on this for a long time, you were so excited when the insurance rates weren't going up. And then you were so bummed when they would go up 18% or something crazy, and it would mess with the budget so much. Is this actually going to give you some relief there? Is that how I'm grasping this thing?
It is correct. Yes, what we want to do is recognize our group being healthy and doing our best to be healthy, and the trustees overseeing the very best benefits that we can get, because we can go to the open market now and maybe buy a different pharmacy program, which won't have a negative impact on our all the folks that work for the city that are on these plans. And thus we believe, thanks to the changes in the industry, that we can save that money because our group is healthy and big enough. So the timing feels really good to take advantage of this. And there's, we're pushing 10, 11 months of work, mostly done by our consultant and attorneys that the consultant has brought on board to make this happen.
Thank you.
Other questions for Troy? Kiki.
So you said you were bringing this to the state commission this month? And
we've been with Department of Insurance every month since March of 2019.
So, but I meant this was the final, so you don't expect that there's going to be any hiccups, anything that's going to stall this at this point?
No, or I would not be here. Great question. but very hard to get a yes from the Department of Insurance until all of this is done and it's funded. So we will not hear a yes until mid-December.
Any other questions for Troy? If no
Mr.
other
Mayor,
questions, we'd be looking for
I'd like to
council
move
action.
for approval of Resolution 19063, approving the City of Coeur d'Alene Employee Benefit Trust Irrevocable Trust Agreement.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to thank Greg and Troy for putting in all the hard work on this. We're going to save some taxpayer dollars here, and I think that's awesome, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, roll call, please. Renata?
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes. Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.